Hello and welcome to another episode of the Uncommon Energy Podcast. On this week's episode, we'll be talking about the upcoming Pokemon Presents, which is happening on Pokemon Day next week. We'll give some of our predictions of what we think will happen, at least as things regard to the Play Pokemon program during that announcement. We will talk this week as well about the TCG Live update and letter to the community that the developers posted on the TCG Live forum. Some pretty interesting stuff. And then also a pretty solid update as well that will delve into exactly what they changed. We will, of course, have everyone's favorite segment, Guess That Flavor Text. And we'll close things out by talking about the Champions League Fukuoka results. I think I said that right. We said it very wrong last week, so we apologize. But yeah, we'll talk about the results from the Champions League over in Japan this past week, recap our predictions. Some of us were extremely right, some of us less so. We'll talk. I mean, it was me. Spoiler alert. I was very right. We'll talk about that though later on in the cast. But for now, let's kick things off. My name is Chip Ritchie, joined here as always by my friend and co-host Azul GG. What's up, Azul? How we doing, buddy?
Doing good, Chip. Got to watch most of, or actually all of, the Champions League over the weekend. Yeah, watch all the rounds that they put out there. They showed off, and it was exciting. It was cool to see some of the new decks. Of course, like watching best of one is it always comes back. Like when I watch Champions League, it's like I definitely wish, especially like once you get to top cut, that like they did play best two out of three. But even then, there's like some matches where you wish you could get like another game out of them or something because there was a lot of games that were basically decided in the first couple turns just due to like poor draws on one side or another. So, but yeah, it was still fun to watch it all. Watch the new cards get played. We saw quite a few of them actually get put to work or get put to use to like make a difference in the new format, the new meta. Some old decks, some new decks, some returning decks as well. So yeah, it was a fun weekend of Pokemon.
Yeah, some pretty crazy results, honestly. But we'll talk about that shortly. Yeah, I watched a little bit of it, not that much. I was not as committed as you were. Also, it's a little easier on your West Coast time to stay up until like, I don't know, like what time was the last round finishing every day?
Like the second day was maybe like 1 a.m. The first day was like 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Or
So
maybe it was about the
like
same actually. To be honest, maybe it was
that
like 2 a.m.
that would
both
be
times. But
doable if it was 1 a.m., 2 a.m., but like I'm not staying up until 4 a.m., 5
yeah,
a.m., right?
yeah,
But I tuned in a little bit and watched your stream. I will say like it's nice to like because I've watched the Japanese streams in the past, but it's like it's easy to become distracted because I would usually like watch them on mute because like I don't understand Japanese, don't understand what they're saying. So then I start doing other stuff on my computer, and then it's just like, oh, I'm not even really watching the game. So like watching you watch it was definitely nice because it let me hear someone talking about it and it kept me more like interested in what was happening in the games that I did
yeah,
watch. They did some really weird stuff as well with the Champions League stream where they were like showing rounds that were from previous rounds, right? So like you knew the
yeah. They
result
always do
already
that.
kind of. They did a lot of jumping around and like at one point I remember during the day 2 stream they literally showed a match from day 1 that like
Yeah,
just never got shown.
yeah. Yeah, because they have like a 2 or 3 stages up on the stage there, or 2 or 3 setups up on the stage where they're like, watching games. Like they stream the main stage match, it seems like every single time, and then if there's enough downtime, they show the other match, or even like jump into the middle of the other match while it's happening. Um, but then when they're filling downtime in day 2, or like so specifically like the time for the announcement of the new cards when they were going to be leaked was for um what was it?
It was like
The
before
time,
Top Cut, right, is what they
yeah, it was
said.
supposed to be leaked at like 10 p.m. specifically my time, and it's like it was like 9, and it's like, okay, well, it looks like they're gonna probably do the announcement early, but then they just like filled up time until exactly 10 p.m. pretty much with games from day 2. Like one was from day 2 and one was, yeah, from day 1 even. So
Yeah.
they just kind of filled it all up. But yeah, so that's like a little bit annoying, I guess, that they're not just like jumping into the next round or like doing the card announcements and then jumping to the next round. So some filler stuff because a lot less interesting to watch a match where it's like, this match doesn't really matter anymore at this point. But besides that, yeah, it's cool to see the new cards and see the Japanese players play as well. what they have going on. So yeah, that was super fun over the weekend to be watching that. But then yeah, just kind of for me in general over the last week, just doing content stuff in general. What about you? Did you do anything exciting besides tune into the Champions League a little bit?
Not really. We didn't have too much going on. I did go to a league cup on Saturday, which was fun. I didn't make top eight, unfortunately. I played Gardevoir, which I have not really played very much myself, but I've watched a lot of people play it, and so I was like, you know what? I think I'll be like okay. And I think I played pretty bad, especially in my first round. I just did some kind of silly things that put myself in bad spots. And then I still almost won, but and my opponent maybe got a little lucky to actually close it out. But like, I shouldn't have been in that position regardless. And then one of the rounds, I literally just, uh, it was against like Roaring Moon, and I didn't attack until I didn't take a knockout until they were at two prizes already. And I had a small chance to win with like Iono and stuff, but he
Yeah,
was able to, off the Iono to one, establish a Roaring Moon from one with just one energy. So, it happens. But yeah, going 4-2 means you don't make top cut usually at League Cups. So another reason best of one feels not so super good. But I think it makes the most sense, obviously, for locals. But I could yeah, I saw your tweet, talking about, anyone who what is it that you said? Anyone who is, like, thinks that we should switch to best of one should just watch a Champions League tournament.
yeah. That was my tweet. Anyone who thinks best of one is better should watch a Champions League tournament because I think that like you fully get to see why best two out of three is so much better. I think one thing people forget about best two out of three as well is just like the level of play or like the level of play, but the watching players like adapt from game one to the game two and game two to game three. It's just like there's such like a high level of play to like see and makes the matchup so much more interesting and intricate when you watch players, play out a full best two out of three as opposed to just playing one game. And even if the game isn't like a donk or someone doesn't draw poorly, it's still so much more enjoyable and entertaining to watch a best two out of three. And all the people who want best of one would, I'm sure, still want best two out of three for top cut, of course, but limiting it to just 3 rounds of best 2 out of 3 in a whole tournament feels like such a it feels like you're just nerfing the skill expression and almost like the beauty of the playing of the game of Pokemon when you take it from what it can potentially be in a best 2 out of 3 match and then reducing it to a best of 1 match.
The variance just
Um
goes up so much for one game.
Yeah, there's just so much more to a best 2 out of 3 match in Pokemon than there is to a best of 1, besides just avoiding people, like, dead drawing or drawing poorly, just, like yeah, it's just, like it's such a massive gap in terms of, like, enjoyability in terms of watching and enjoyability in terms of playing it. I just don't understand why anyone would want best of 1, like, even my understanding of, like, the Japanese players, I'm pretty sure they all want best 2 out of 3 as well, especially, like, the higher end players. I'm sure some of, like, the more casual players in Japan don't really care, but like for the more competitive players, I'm pretty sure they're a big fan of best two out of three as well. So yeah, grass is always greener, I guess. Maybe
Yeah.
situation a little bit. But
Well,
actually, like
yeah.
one thing with that as well, actually, like maybe it's just like a North American thing to be honest, because in Europe and Australia, like majority of their like cups and challenges are best two out of three. Like I think every single like someone in my chat was like every cup and challenge in Australia is best two out of three because they have less of them over there. Like in North America, we're spoiled a little bit with cups and challenges. Like you go like I don't like when I lived
Depending
in
on where you live.
yeah, but for the most part, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
everywhere I've lived, like I could go to like two cups or two challenges pretty much every single weekend
Yeah,
of
for
every
sure.
single week for where I lived in Indiana and when I lived in Massachusetts. So but over in Europe, Australia, I feel like they have a little bit less access most of the time. There's probably like in the UK and stuff, it's probably pretty good access to locals, but I know they're bigger fans of like best out of three in general, like, even at like local tournaments. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
don't think it's ever
mean,
gonna. Hopefully, it never changes. Hopefully, it doesn't change. Hopefully, they don't take us back to best of one.
yeah, because we did have it before, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's pros and cons to both things, and like you said, I think it is probably just a grass is always greener type situation, but yeah, let's go ahead and hop into things. And I guess first off, before we talk about our first kind of main topic, there was one other thing that kind of popped up this week that we did want to at least mention, and that was a new registration process that Arcanine Labs introduced with the registration that happened this past week for the Orlando Regional Championships. I think they did introduce it for like a Dragon Ball or Digimon or One Piece tournament. a little bit before, but this is the first time the Pokemon community was seeing it. So for anyone who doesn't know, Arcanine Labs handles like all the registration for Pokemon tournaments. And the previous system that they've had employed has left a lot of people really frustrated, constantly refreshing, being told, getting that red bar that says the tournament is at capacity right now, but refresh, come back 15 minutes later, try again, all this stuff. People just spam refresh for an hour and then
Yeah.
they're like, and then after an hour, they just don't get in. So it just leaves people really frustrated. And this past week, for Orlando regionals, we saw kind of their new setup, the first come first serve system. Azul, you want to tell us about it because you registered using this system?
Yeah, so basically it is basically seems like it is just coming down to there's a couple new pages or like one new page you have to go through where it basically is like you go through the process of clicking the green register button, you tick all the boxes for like the terms of service and stuff, and then you click register, and then it puts you in a virtual queue where it's like feeding the information through the site. And like if you were depending on when you clicked register, wherever you fall in the lineup of people is where it'll let you into the confirming your registration and then taking to the payment processing page. And if you are, if there's like, was it 2,200 players or something, Masters for Orlando? So if you're like two or you're number 31 or something, then you will basically not get in through registration. So it's like seems to be like pretty much on the first come first serve basis, which I think pretty much everyone is fine with. Yeah, the problem with like the last process we had is you would sit there, like you'd go to register and it would say basically the process is overwhelmed right now, try again to register. And you could be sitting there for like 45 minutes or an hour, sitting there refreshing the page, clicking register, refreshing the play page, clicking register for that long. And it's just so much more nice to just like either be in or be out and just be done with it. Like no one wants to sit there for an hour trying to register because there's a possibility you could register.
Yeah.
Everyone just wants to try and register, and if you get in, you're in. Great, we move on. And if you're out, you're out. And we move on. We don't have to sit there for another 45 minutes to figure out if we're in or not at that point. So definitely a
Yep.
better system. This makes me wonder, when was the previous system implemented, and then what was the system before that system, or has it always been the system that we just had? But I feel like that was a new system that they put in like last year.
Yeah, I think it was.
But
And
then what was the system
before
beforehand?
it was just like true first come first serve, I feel like, but the website was like constantly being overloaded and crashing, I think,
Okay,
because
because
of they like couldn't handle the load of the amount of people registering. If I'm remembering right, it's been a little while, so I don't 100%
yeah,
know. But also like before that, for sure, there this just like was not an issue for such a long time, right? Like
yeah,
you
of
could
course, yeah.
register like, weeks after registration opened for such a long time. So,
Yeah, but yeah,
and
way
then
better system now, and
yeah,
yeah, definitely good to see that they have adjusted it. And I think there will still be some people who have their gripes with this one, but I think over across the board, the majority of people are more content with what we have now than what we had before Orlando registration.
and then also today, the day that this episode comes out, 7 p.m. GMT, 2 p.m. Eastern time, I think, is going to be EUIC registration as well. So we'll really get kind of the first good look at how a lot of whenever I think a tournament is probably going to sell out very fast.
I think it's the
You
day
know,
after,
what's
not
that?
this day. It's the day after. Would you say the day after this day or this day?
I think it's today.
No, no, no.
Registration opens February 21st. Oh,
Oh, wait, no, 22nd.
that's really
My
weird. I'm looking at it on Arcanine's. I guess this is just wrong then. Because I do see that here. EUIC player registration, wave one, February 22nd at 7 p.m. But down here it says registration opens at 24:20. This has to just be wrong, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, everything I've seen is 22 at 7 PM, and I
Okay,
think the
so
the page on the official Pokemon site is the 22nd at 7 PM. But
well,
yeah,
maybe check this page tomorrow, see if something
I mean, I'll check it now. Now I'm gonna check it.
yeah, little uncommon energy exclusive. Go give it a peep, I guess. But I imagine registration will be going up February 22nd. So this is a turn like for Orlando, for example. It's not a tournament that's sold out immediately, right?
I was pretty fast actually, I think. I don't know.
No, I remember I went and tried to register the night, like
Okay.
hours after registration opened,
You
and
register
I
right
could
now?
still have registered. I cannot register right now. It is sold
Okay,
out
okay.
now.
So now it's sold out, okay.
So it was definitely open for a little while, but it did fill up. They tweeted about, the different screens and stuff that you could see, like you were talking about. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting with EUIC registration. That's going to be a tournament that will likely sell out very quickly.
Yeah.
What that first come first serve system actually looks like.
Yeah, it'll go pretty quickly, I think. I'm curious to see how many seats, I mean, the Excel Center is pretty big.
Mhm.
So there's the space at the actual venue to have a pretty big tournament.
And they know
Um,
that the demand for this is gonna be crazy, like, they have
yeah.
to know,
I
right?
think the next hurdle, honestly, is not finding venues with more space, but probably finding enough staff. I think it's probably
Yeah,
the next hurdle
yeah.
in the growth of the Pokemon TCG Masters division. And one thing that would free up staff to not be handing out match slips would be to put the results, pairings, or whatever, be able to report on your phone who won your match and no longer have people cutting up match slips, printing match slips, and then dishing out match slips to every single table. Everyone with cell service who's connected for Wi Fi can just report their match on their phone, and everyone else who can't, there'll be like a little station with one person at the hive, or you can call like down a judge. And then if the judge has service, they can like input your match for you on their phone. So I think that'd be like one step in freeing up people to who are staffing events to be able to do, the other duties that'd be necessary to have larger events. So I think that's kind of in that chain of or in that process of like a tournament's getting bigger would be to, you know, staff might become a problem, a shortage of staff might become a problem, but for where we currently are in the process of what staff does at tournaments, we can free up those people from doing those things every single round and they can become, floor judges or whatever else you need to have a tournament run smoothly.
Yeah, hopefully that's something we see soon. It's definitely something that I think needs to be updated as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's move on and let's talk about the Pokemon Presents that is coming out next Tuesday. So we'll be able to talk about the results of it on the podcast next week. But there is going to be a Pokemon Presents on Pokemon Day, which is February 27th. Going to be at 6 a.m. Pacific time that Tuesday, 9 a.m. Eastern time. And yeah, they in the past have used the Pokemon Presents around this time of year to announce the official dates of the upcoming World Championships. So I think a lot of people are expecting that that's where we're going to hear finally get confirmation of the dates for the upcoming World Championships in Honolulu.
What else have they announced on here as far as, like, the play Pokemon, like, tournament structure stuff before? Is
I
it
don't
just
think
Worlds?
much.
What about, like, cards? Have they ever talked about the cards?
They have not.
No? So it literally just is the world states as far as, like, competitive
As far as
Pokemon, like
competitive
VGC or
Pokemon is
TCG,
concerned, yeah.
because 'cause they're always talking about they always announce stuff for the video games on here, but nothing, like, even connected to, like, the video game competitions, right?
Last year, they did, I think, during a Pokemon Presents in the summer, I wanna say, um, they did reveal, like, what the champion playmat and hat and all that stuff looked like.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. That sounds familiar. Yeah.
But I think they're mostly using it, I mean, because like, the majority, like, the vast majority of the people who are watching this Pokemon Presents, they like don't really know anything about play Pokemon organized play, right?
Yeah.
So more than anything, I think it serves as a purpose to kind of introduce the more casual or like the wider Pokemon fan base. Introduce them to the fact that like such a thing even exists, because that's, I think, a big part, like such a high percentage of people in just like general Pokemon fandom like don't even know of the existence of like the world championships or like of the competitive circuit, right? Really, maybe they know about worlds, but they don't know like about regionals and all these things that go on all throughout the year.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, for sure. Yeah. So, yeah, we'll probably just be able to expect the last two what, Pokemon days, the Pokemon Presents on Pokemon Day, they've announced the dates for the World Championships.
Yeah.
Have they ever given us more info than that, or is it just the dates? I don't remember what the last one was like.
I think it was just the dates. I'm trying to find last year's Pokemon Presents, um, but I can't find it at the moment. Okay. Yeah, here we go. Last year's Pokemon Presents, and they did announce last year during this the Pokemon TCG Classic.
Mhm.
So that's where this product got announced. We see something about that. Um, they announced Worlds right here. World Championships 2023. Also, they had this crazy animatronic Pikachu man like that there. Hopefully this thing does not make an appearance. Hopefully this thing got like um but yeah, they announced the world states. I think that's pretty much it though as far as TCG is concerned. Um but yeah, I mean they'll use this to talk about all the various Pokemon properties, different things. Last year they announced the Pokemon Concierge Netflix show. Um No, they talked about Pokemon Unite, they talked about Pokemon Cafe Remix, Pokemon Masters EX, Pokemon Sleep,
Classic. 'Cause I
Pokemon
didn't
Violet.
I was gonna ask, but I actually know now. Yeah, the Pokemon Sleep exists now, right? Didn't it take forever for that thing to come out?
It did take forever for it to come out, and it does exist now, yes. I know this is not something you really care about, Azul, because you're not, like, actually a Pokemon fan, but in the background of the, like, little teaser that they put out, the tune playing is uh like, theme of, like, the Johto region, the Johto games, which is the Generation 2 game, so a lot of people have speculated, like, maybe there's something to do with, Johto in this next announcement, like a gold and silver remake type game. You know, let's
Oh.
go,
I saw people talking
Marill,
about,
let's
like
go Wooper, let's go Pichu or something, let's go Togepi.
I saw people talking about, black and white remakes or something like that.
Yeah, that's I think that's something that's gonna happen at some point, obviously. I mean, they've remade every generation of the game, right? Like
Already?
yeah. Well, no, 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 but, like
Oh, so far they've been remaking them?
yeah, so in order, the next remakes would be Generation 5, so one would just think at some point a Generation 5 remake will happen. Is now the time? I don't know. We'll find out. We'll find out next week. The thing I'm hoping for, the thing I would love to see is if they had a um Nintendo Switch Online access to, like, the original Game Boy games. That's what I would love to see.
Why does that not exist currently? You can't play the original.
No.
No? Interesting. I'm
If
surprised they
you
haven't already
want
done stuff like
to
that.
play, like, Pokemon Red, Blue, or Yellow officially, the only ways to do it would be to purchase an original Game Boy cartridge or, have a Nintendo 3DS that you could have bought those games on the Virtual Console before the Nintendo 3DS eShop shut down.
Hmm. I kinda
So
just,
there's
like,
no
assumed.
official way to currently play Pokemon Red, Blue, Yellow, Gold, Silver, Crystal, or Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, any of those old games. Really anything before the like Nintendo Switch games you can't play unless you just go buy the hardware off eBay or something like that.
Is that with, like, all Nintendo games? Because I remember I think I actually was trying to, like, get older Zelda games on my Switch, um, to play.
Yeah. No,
I don't even think I
yeah,
was
you
able
can't.
to.
Unless you can get them on Nintendo Switch Online, a lot of them.
Okay, I don't even know what that is.
So it's like their online service that you have to pay for if you want to like, play anything online. Like if you
Oh,
want to
is it
do
like
Pokemon stuff
PlayStation
online,
Plus?
if you yeah, exactly. PlayStation Plus, Xbox Live, whatever. But one of their perks of having Nintendo Switch Online is that they have these um N64, Game Boy, NES, Super Nintendo like classic game catalogs that you have access to for being a Nintendo Switch Online subscriber. It's actually like I mean, that alone almost makes it worth having Nintendo Switch Online if you're someone who's gonna like play those older games.
Yeah,
It's kind
yeah,
of the main
definitely.
reason I have it, to be honest. Um, but yeah. So that's my big hope is that the original Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games come to Nintendo Switch Online. That's what I'm crossing my fingers for.
Yeah, I guess I'm just looking for. I mean, they never announced cool Pokemon TCG stuff, so I don't really have any
I mean,
hopes.
they
I mean,
announced the TCG Classic, but I don't know if they would
yeah,
have
that's
anything like
not.
that in the
Yeah,
pipe the works right now, right?
I guess it does seem like all that TCG stuff just gets announced at the Champions Leagues, to be honest.
Yeah.
All the because we did get some more card leaks that we'll talk about. Um, when we get to the Champions League. But those all happen during the Champions League, so yeah, they don't even happen. Uh, there's like nothing for them to, I guess, announce really about the TCG ever on Pokemon Presents because it's just kind
Yeah.
of separated with that.
Yeah, a little bit of a bummer, I guess. But yeah, we'll see. Hopefully next week when we have the podcast, we'll be telling you about the world's dates. I imagine a lot of people are going to be booking flights and hotel basically
Yeah.
after that announcement comes out. But yeah, let's move on and go to our next topic here, and that is a big TCG live update and a letter to the community from the developers. Now, the developers do pretty regular. Is it like once a quarter have a letter to the community?
Mm,
Maybe it's just kind of less sporadic or more sporadic than that. Like there's not like a consistent ebb or flow to when a letter to the community comes
last
out.
one was December 29th.
They come out every once in a while, but
Yeah.
yeah, this one was a pretty big update, to be honest. They just put out this announcement and said, "We have a small update to share with you today. Phase one of the battle log feature previously discussed will be released with today's latest update. We'd also like to share some future changes in the works for the ranked ladder system." So they showed a couple pictures here of the battle log, a true game log, something that we did have on TCG online.
Yep.
Took a little while, but we finally got it on TCG Live. I haven't played with this yet, but Azul, you played some today. What was the battle game log like?
Yeah, so I actually, like, I just went in there and, like, tried out the battle log, like, I just made a deck and, someone in my chat, I just queued up a game against them. So I, like, tried out all the cards that you'd be most interested to see if they work correctly in the battle log, stuff like Clara, Super Rod, Palpad, everything worked correctly. Um, and it has all the information there. So it's, like, a pretty thorough battle log, and it works well. There doesn't seem to be too many bugs. My only complaints, one is a pretty big complaint actually, is if you like scroll down to check something on the battle log and then your opponent makes an action, it changes your position in the battle log. Like
Mm,
where you're looking starts to move. Um, so that's really annoying. That's very similar to other things on PTCG Live. Like if you check your opponent's discard pile and they go make an action, it closes their discard pile. And then if you reopen it and they play another action, it'll close it again. Same thing with the Lost Zone. So that's really annoying.
yeah,
It's like if I'm opening their discard pile or I'm scrolling to a different section on the battle log, I obviously want to see that information. So just let me get the information and then I'll get back to paying attention to what my opponent's doing. So that's really annoying. We see that with other stuff, like I mentioned with the Lost Zone and the discard pile. So that just shouldn't exist, and hopefully they fix that. But besides that, it's pretty thorough. The cards are really small. Like when you play Super Rod, which is actually kind of nice. Like it's the battle log's kind of condensed, where it's like if you play Super Rod and you open the battle log, it'll be like player played Super Rod, and then there's a little arrow, like we can see here that chip showing on the screen if you guys are listening to us, I guess you can't. It's gonna be hard to tell, to be honest, if you're listening to us. Like if you
you
can't see,
described it well. There's a little
um,
arrow, a drop down
yeah, there's
window.
basically a drop down for any action that would have like multiple follow up interactions. So on the battle log, it'll say like player played Super Odd, but then if you click the arrow down, it'll be like player recovered these three cards. Or if you like use Pokestop, it'll be like player use Pokestop, and you click the little arrow to get a drop down of the full interactions of what happened on the Pokestop. It'll be like player discarded these three cards, and then after that, another interaction will be player recovered these X amount of items to their hand and what the items were. It'll have little images for every card discarded, little images for every card recovered. The images are really small. Um, so like the images being a little bit bigger would be nice. And then, like I said, the scrolling thing is really, really annoying. It was just nice to be able to scroll down to what I want to get to go to, check what I want to check without it moving up and down as my opponent plays other actions on their turn.
Kind of interesting
But
here. It like tells you what card you drew for turn as well. I don't really
that's like pretty thorough.
that's kind of nice, honestly. Like in case you're like, wait, what did I not have that last turn? You can like take a look. Yeah. Oh yeah, I didn't have that last
It'll
turn.
tell you what you took as a prize card as well. Like it tells you literally everything. So it's pretty thorough. It's nice, definitely. Good to finally have. It took a while, but yeah, finally have the battle log, and it's a decent one. Like I said, the only two complaints are the cards are a little bit small, the images are a little bit small for the viewing it, and then the scrolling thing is really really annoying. But besides
And this
that,
is like a pretty
nice.
important thing as well for the developers to have because when people encounter like it's just a natural part of the game, right? No matter how much testing you do, even though sometimes it feels like in TCG Live there's like basically no testing done. But no matter how much testing you do, whenever you release a game to, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, however many people, and they get their hands on it and start playing with every possible card interaction, they're going to encounter bugs that the dev team would have not been able to encounter. It happens in literally every single video game,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's
But
not
in order for them to
unavoidable.
identify what happened and what went wrong, having access to a battle log is like a pretty important part to like understand where the interaction broke, where things went wrong, right?
Yeah, they can see the sequence of how cards were played and what was interacted with to then determine what maybe caused the bug to happen. So yeah, that's also important for that as well. I think I even remember like back with PTCGO, if you ran into a bad situation, like or a situation, they would want you like was there like a
You could
forums for
export your
PTCGO?
battle log,
Yeah, you could
yeah.
export the battle log and they would want you to send them the battle log so they could then look at it. Was it called a battle log back then?
I think it was just called a game
Game
log.
log? Yeah.
Yeah.
They want you because that's I don't know, it just feels like a new term. I mean, it doesn't matter, we can call it battle log, game log, whatever. They'd want you to send them the battle log so then they could then more easily determine, what causes the bug, which interactions cause the bug to happen. So that
Is
this
there a way
hopeful
to export the battle log in the new system?
yeah, at the end of the game, you can export the battle log. So
Okay.
hopefully this is, like, also something a tool that will maybe lead to bugs getting fixed faster, I guess, as well. On top of it being a useful tool that almost feels like it's necessary to be able to play the game properly with some interactions that happen in the game. Because before the battle log, if your opponent plays Super Rod, they play the Super Rod, and then three cards jump from their discard pile to their deck, and you can't really tell what they were for sure every time. And you could like, if you knew what was in your opponent's discard pile and then you check it, then you would be able to tell what it is. But that's like so much to demand of a player to pay attention to in every single game, but it's
Yeah.
very not so much to ask to be able to know what your opponent super brought it back in. That a battle log, either they needed to like come out with something like the battle log, which now they've done, or they needed to like slow down animations or like have like a pop up happen when something like a super rod or something recovers a card to your deck. So the battle log's a fine solution to that. I don't think they need to really adjust too much more around that. If you're truly curious as to know exactly what your opponent got, then you can go to the battle log and check um, what your opponent recovered now instead of just having to guess potentially based on you not having full knowledge of what was exactly in your opponent's discard pile before they went to use the super rod. Because in real life, if your opponent plays a super rod, they show you the three cards, and if they go to move too fast to put them back in their hand, you can be like, wait, can I see those again? So I can like actually fully take in what you're doing with the card. But you couldn't actually do that with PTCG Live until now.
And then to me, the more interesting and hopefully more exciting thing was the later half of the
We'll get your hopes up.
community uh, letter to the community here. So they posted at the end after they revealed the battle log. They said last year the team closely monitored the analytics of the ranked game mode and noticed that most players hit a challenging hurdle in their progression. Higher tiers required excessive time commitment to reach, and the percentage of players able to progress past the Great League indicated a significant imbalance in the progression system. We understand that this imbalance hinders your ability to advance and diminishes the rewards and satisfaction that should accompany your efforts. As a result of these findings, we'll implement an essential update to our ranked ladder system in a future release. This update aims to address the current state of ranked play, ensuring that progress aligns more closely with the expectations and investment of players' time and effort. The balancing efforts of our ranked ladder is a continuous and iterative process, and moving forward, we are committed to its continued evolution. Your feedback and insights are invaluable to us, and we encourage you to share your thoughts as we work together to create an enjoyable ladder experience for all players.
So basically, it just sounds like they're going to make it easier to climb the ladder, which I think is fine. Maybe it is a little bit difficult right now. Um, and even if you can't get to like Arceus League, if that's your end goal in one season, as long as you can climb up a little bit higher each season, then your fall down will you'll fall a little bit higher than maybe you fell the season before, and you'll eventually be able to climb up to that Arceus rank. Um, so trying to make that a little bit easier is basically what this is saying, but not really actually saying that they're actually going to give us a ranked ladder. So we're still missing a leaderboard,
It's not a true
and
ranked ladder still.
yeah, we're still missing a leaderboard or an ELO or an MMR system. So those things are still missing from actually having a real ranked ladder. So we
Do you think
still
there's
just
any
have
chance that this announcement leads to that?
um I don't know if this changes that.
So, like,
Um,
what would they change here? Would they just decrease the amount of
I think
like,
they're just gonna
increase the
it's
amount of points they give you for wins once you get to
yeah, that's
certain
all they're gonna
tiers?
do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it sounds like all they're gonna do. I don't think that like, nothing in here, like, suggests that they're going to actually give us a ranked ladder. They're just gonna make it easier to climb ranks, basically, which I think is fine if ranks are a little bit too hard to climb. I
I
don't know
mean,
what they're
you
actually gonna
play,
implement,
like,
but
every single day, and
not q well, I mean, as of late, not quite. Like, I stream a lot of days, but I haven't been playing as much on PTCG Live recently, to be honest.
but you play, like, probably more than the average person, TCG Live ladder, do you think?
Yeah,
Or
oh, of course, more than the average, definitely.
but, I mean and you're obviously, like, one of the better players too, but, like, I don't think like, you haven't been Arceus tier since, like, you pushed hard for it back earlier on in the game's
Beta.
release, I think, right?
Yeah, I got, like, the Arceus once. I am
Yeah.
gonna actually change that. I'm gonna turn some of my streams into, like, try hard, like, Road to Arceus.
I think
Uh,
people are interested in that.
yeah. So like, 1 or 2 streams a week is gonna be Road to Arceus streams where I grind the ladder a little bit more try hard with,
Play,
like,
like, a
1
try
deck.
hard deck.
Yeah. Um, and yeah, so, I mean, that'd be cool to do, but, like, once again, it's a little bit hard to be motivated to do that when there's nothing to really play for, right? Like, even if I get to the Arceus League, it's like, I would wanna be able to potentially grind for rank 1, but there's no rank 1. There's,
Yeah.
like, these leagues that you get to by gaining, LP, and that's it. Get your league points, climb up through the leagues. You don't know who's rank 1, you don't know how many people are in your rank, you don't know what you're competing against, you don't know what you're competing for. Actually competing for, like, there's, like, in-game items that you get for getting Arceus League
Yeah.
and stuff, but,
And they
like,
are
I don't
exclusive, right? They are like I don't know.
yeah,
There's definitely a lot of people who, like, really care about, like, in-game cosmetics and stuff like that. I mean, I like in-game cosmetics.
it just
Um,
makes no sense to not have a leaderboard,
yeah.
a true MMR or ELO system.
Especially when
um
every other Pokemon title has it, right?
Yeah,
We've
that's,
talked
like,
about
the
it's
most
been a while
confusing
since we've
thing.
talked about this, but we have definitely talked about it plenty, right? Like,
Yeah.
in Pokemon VGC, you grind through Pokeball, Great Ball, Ultra Ball tier, but you eventually get to
You get the
Master
rank
Ball
1.
tier,
Yep.
and when you get to Master Ball tier, they put a rank next to your name, and you see
Yep.
what your rank is, and you see yourself climb the ranks or fall in the ranks depending on if you win or lose. You see the rank of your opponent. The same thing happens in Pokemon Unite. The same thing happens in Pokemon Go. But
Yeah,
for some reason in
literally,
TCG, we just can't have that.
I don't and it doesn't make any sense. Like, especially because like, maybe if, like, for some reason they were against the idea of, like, a ranked ladder, in Pokemon, like, I don't know why they would be. Like, if they were like if they fundamentally thought the idea of that was flawed to have in a game, then it would be like, "Okay, I mean, it'd be cool to know why you think that," but it's obviously they don't think that because literally every other game that they have has a ranked ladder except for the TCG Live. Like, and
It would be, like,
just makes no
silly if they
sense.
thought that, but it would be if no other game had it, then it would be like, "Okay, this is just something Pokemon doesn't do, whatever,"
Yeah,
right?
it would
But the
still be
fact that, like you
dumb.
said, every other game has it.
Yes, it's just ridiculous. Like, why have they not given us a ranked ladder? Or just, like, someone over there has a vast misunderstanding of what a ranked ladder is and just needs to be told what a ranked ladder is. I'm on Twitter. You can send me a message. I'll explain what a ranked ladder is, and then we can start to implement it at Azul_GG. We can figure it out. But yeah, it's very disappointing. Like, that's still and like this, like us getting the battle log. That's what I said on my stream earlier as well. It's like it's just more of just like, okay, finally. Like, I'm not. It's nothing too. It's like there's nothing too exciting or hype about it. It's just like every other game has this. PTCGO had this. It's like finally we have this, right? But there's still so many other flaws with PTCG Live. I think the next big hurdles, or the next two big hurdles, are a ranked ladder, and then improving the feel of the gameplay because the gameplay feels just still pretty bad, and it still feels worse than PTCGO, which is disgusting. But it does still feel worse than PTCGO. So I think there's like the next two big things to check off the list is give us a ranked ladder and then improve the quality of the gameplay because there's so many hiccups in the gameplay to actually just play a game of Pokemon. The animations, stuff like Guardy's ability, getting locked out of using actions. Like you'll do an action and then the animation plus the text on the screen telling you what's happening locks you out of the game for like 3 to 4 seconds. And I can't like queue up my next action. It's like I played my Ultra Ball, I click my cards, and now it's taking me forever to select the Pokemon out of my deck. Like
Yeah.
things need to be smoother and more fluid and intuitive, and it just feels super clunky. And that's like, yeah, those are the next two big things: ranked ladder, and the gameplay needs to be upgraded pretty drastically for sure.
Hopefully, these are things we see change. We'll see. I mean, I think some of that stuff, like, especially, like, the gameplay feeling better, I think that is stuff that will just improve with time. The question is gonna
Yeah.
be just, like, how long does it
Then
take?
that's the biggest thing too, like that I was mentioning talking about with my stream earlier as well when we like went over this stuff with the letter and like tried out the new thing. It's like everything is just taking so long. Like how long is PTCG? How long have we been
Its
out of beta?
two-year anniversary is coming up, I think, in March.
Dude, it's so ridiculous. We don't have a rank ladder. The gameplay still feels clunky. Like, come on. Bugs are still up like not as big of a deal. The bugs don't really come up that much anymore. The bugs have been not completely flushed out the way it should be or the way it should feel, I think, consistently. There's always gonna be bugs like we mentioned, but um there's always that fear when a new set drops of like what can we actually play with in this new set? And we never know for sure. So yeah, it's just everything is just taking so long. I don't know. It's draining. I mean, I guess at least for them in terms of that, I mean, it is like a long-term project, so it's not like they're losing out on any kind of like hype behind not having this thing be better sooner. So like then there will be always a new set of Pokemon cards that'll draw people into wanting to play on PTCG Live. So um it is definitely a long-term project for them for sure. I don't know how pressed they feel for time, to be honest.
Well, let's move on here to everyone's favorite segment. But before we do have to, of course, take a moment to thank our amazing sponsor, Dragon Shield, for supporting us here at the Uncommon Energy podcast. Of course, Dragon Shield makes some of the best card gaming and tabletop gaming products and accessories on the market. We use their sleeves, the binders, the deck boxes, and so much more. We love Dragon Shield and really appreciate their support of us here at Uncommon Energy.
Yep. Shout out to Dragon Shield as always for sponsoring the podcast. Check them out at dragonshield.com. You can use our code over there, UEPOD. Get yourself 5% off. Support us over here on the podcast as well. There'll be a link, of course, in the description for you all to check out.
Yep, yeah, I used, them at my league cup this past weekend, just used the good old classic black mats, always my go-to these days. I did mention a couple weeks ago, I got this, like, case of the orange or but just box of this orange classics. I'm saving for a special occasion, though. If I play, like, a regionals or something, we're gonna bust these bad boys out.
The classics. That's
Yes.
been a while. That's literally what everyone before Dragon Shield even had matte sleeves. That's what they're called the classics because that used to be the only Dragon
Yeah,
Shield
yeah,
sleeve they
yeah.
ever made. That's what everyone in my area used to use was the I think we mentioned that last week on the podcast
Yeah, we
actually maybe.
did.
But yeah, everyone just used to use running around with the classics. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump into guess that flavor text segment of the podcast where me or Chip will pick a card, read the flavor text on the card, and then the other co-hosts will try and guess what Pokemon belongs to that card. If they get it right without using any lifelines, they get 4 points for each lifeline you use. You do get -1 point. The lifelines are what set the card is from, what stage the card is, and then read an attack name. Chip, are you ready?
I am super ready, Azul. Hit me with it. What am I ahead by right now? 6
Eight,
points still,
six.
something like that?
I thought it was 8. Was it like 19 to 11?
Dang, bro, 8 points. Brother, you have got to step it up.
I did just reread this card.
No,
No, I
no,
don't
go
think.
ahead and give it to me. It's fine.
All right, I don't think we've done it before. That's what I was gonna say. I just want to make sure we
Okay.
haven't done it before. All right. When blank shake hands, a network forms between their brains, increasing their psychic power.
When blank shake hands, increasing psychic power. I mean, this is like obviously a psychic Pokemon. It's just got to be, right?
I mean, I
um,
would that would be my guess.
shaking hands. So, like, I mean, thinking of one of my first thoughts was literally just like Mr. Mime, a psychic Pokemon that has a hand, right? But there's a lot of psychic Pokemon that have hands. I don't think like Alakazam is going to come up and give you a handshake though, but I could see Mr. Mime wanting to give you a handshake. Um, I also thought of like Reuniclus for some reason. For some reason as well, like this is making me think of like a Pokemon that's multiple of them become like come together often in the game or something like that, or like maybe some sort of like, multiple of them come together to become the next evolution of the Pokemon, potentially, something like that. I'm gonna need a little help here though. Let's go with what set the card is from to start with.
It is from Noble Victories.
Ooh, so it could be Reuniclus or yeah, Duosion and Solosis do not have hands, so it's if it's something from that evolution line, it's gotta be Reuniclus. I'm pretty sure there's a Reuniclus in it's actually I've realized I'm saying that Pokemon's name wrong, by the way. It's Reuniqueless.
Of course,
Reuniqueless.
yeah, Reuniqueless.
Re- it is a unique Pokemon, didn't you know? Well, I don't think
One
there's a
of
Mr.
its
Mime in
things.
Noble Victories. Let me hear the flavor text one more time, Azul.
When blank shake hands, a network forms between their brains, increasing their psychic power.
So what other I will say like the Gen 5 Pokemon. Gen 5 is definitely like just the generation of the games I know the least about because I've never like actually played through those games. So um I forget like the Pokemon that are in that generation a lot of the time too. Um let's go with what stage the card is. If you say stage 2, I'm probably just locking in Reuniqueless.
It is a stage 2.
All right, let's go with the Reuniqueless. It might not be it, but I can't really think of anything else it would be.
It is Uniclus.
Yeah, let's
Dude, you got that one
go.
so fast. I read it and I was like, I don't know. I guess Chip could get this one pretty fast, but I was like, maybe like the attack I was going to use would be Future Sight, just a psychic Pokemon. Does Reuniclus really have hands? I don't know. Um, if you read the first comment on the card
Is
here
this
on
the right
Pokemon
one?
cards, yeah, that is the right one. Yeah, just read the first comment on the card.
Would be better as a basic,
Yeah,
like for the card.
yeah, I guess.
And then they said would be broken as a basic. Someone replied.
160 turn one. Yeah, net force. You just bench 4 Reuniclus turn one, 160 for one psychic. That'd be pretty good back then.
That would be pretty good back then. Yeah. Yeah, let's go, dude. Reuniqueless. I mean,
Yeesh.
it's honestly kind of hard to like even classify this bubble as a hand. I feel like.
That's what I'm saying. Like, how did like it? Does it even have hands?
I think that the um
It's the first time I've really looked at Reuniclus before, and it's a interesting looking little dude
honestly,
for
like I
sure.
think that the like what are the other psychic type options here? Oh, I guess Behem could have been one potentially. Um
Yeah, I didn't
but
really
like
dig
the
that
other
far
psychic type
into.
Pokemon from this generation, like Cofagrigus is a
Yeah,
ghost
but
type.
you just like
Garbodor,
knew Reuniclus was like. You were just like, yep, there's one in the set. Yep, that's the generation.
I was pretty sure there was one in the set. Didn't know
Yeah,
100%. I think I have because
that's
like I
fair.
think that this guy. I guess it's
That
not
one
this one. It's probably
looks.
the ones from base set that are in the truth, right?
Well, I don't know. That one looks familiar. That Duosion, but maybe not.
Uh, no, Noble Victories was not legal for 2011 Worlds.
Okay, that one does look familiar. Maybe it was in a different deck. I mean, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I have seen the card before, but um,
Well, maybe this is the one people played once. Uh, once it came out compared to this one, but I mean, I don't know. This
maybe
one,
yeah.
yeah, who knows? This one probably is better, I guess. I don't know. Or I don't know. We don't have to worry about which Duosion is technically the better Duosion, but let's go. 2 more points for Chip. That puts me at 21, buddy. That's a
Yeah.
full what, 10 points ahead?
I'm gonna have to start the comeback next week. I have a lot of ground to make up here.
I'm gonna have to hold your hand, basically.
Hey, we'll actually that's not true. I said this before, but like, I was like, we'll get through enough Pokemon eventually where it'll be easier, but it'll make it easier for you. But yeah, I mean, every new generation has so many new Pokemon. We'll never kind of catch up, I don't think.
Yeah, and I can always give you like little basic ones that you'll never get, like Pokemon you've never even heard of, like Mudbray.
I've heard of Mudbray. I probably
Yeah,
caught a
but would
Mudbray
you
in the
have
game.
gotten it, you know?
I mean, what's the flavor text?
That's a good point. Little horse
It's so
guy.
defensive. Yeah. All
All
right.
right. Well, we can move on to the kind of main event of the episode this week, and that is the results from the Champions League Fukuoka. I hope we're saying that better than we did last week. There was literally someone in the comments that was like, I'm a Japanese teacher, and this is like hearing your pronunciation of that city like hurt me. So I hope we did better then. But yeah, Japanese Champions League tournament this past weekend, 2,600 players, Supermassive
Fun.
tournament. But pretty crazy that, like, honestly, our regionals are getting close to that size. Won't be too long until like we're basically, I think, matching them
Man,
at
we
some of
could
the bigger tournaments of the year.
it's possible we start to eclipse them soon, even towards like the end of next season, to be
Yeah.
honest, with our bigger tournaments. Um, yeah, the
Let's
last
remember as
one,
well that their demand is still definitely vastly higher than
yeah,
ours.
because there's like, I think someone said, I don't know how correct that number is, that there's like 8K people who tried to play in the tournament,
Yeah.
or about double what played in the tournament, so that would even still be 5K. I don't think we're quite hitting that much for demand, but are the people who would actually show up to a tournament, I think we could start to get close to that. Especially like, I mean, NAIC and EUIC, like I think we could hit like 3K at both of those if
I think so, yeah.
the space is available. So it just comes down to, do we have the staff? Do we have the space? I think it would be possible.
Well, before we hop into like the full results here, I think we should give a little shout out to Robin over at Limitless. He put in a little bit of extra work here. This kind of relevant, I guess, to what we're talking about Japanese results. With the fact that the temporal forces set does not come out for so long, but it is going to be the Japanese meta right now is going to have a huge impact on upcoming Pokemon TCG tournaments in the rest of the world. Robin added a full section under the tournaments tab for city leagues results from
Yep.
various Japanese city league tournaments. And I mean, there's like ones that are like, this is an update from one that happened 2 days ago.
Yeah.
We talked about some of the results from city leagues last week, and it's definitely very nice that Robin has added this page because this is way easier to navigate than the Japanese website that we were looking at last week.
Yeah. And these are effectively League Cup size events. Um, but there's a lot more interest in these tournaments, especially right now because of the new set release, and rotation already happening over there. And yeah, no one really cares about League Cup results, to be honest. But City League results, we're a lot more interested in,
Yeah,
especially,
clicking
yeah.
on every single one of these, it says 64 players.
Do you want to read
Literally
the
every single
little?
one
Do you
says
want to read the
64
little thing at the
players.
top of the page? The top. There you go.
And they're typically capped at 64 players. Yeah. What do you know?
So City League's generally capped at 64 players. But I guess there's maybe some in there with, but it sounds like, honestly, it seems like probably they always hit the cap. I mean,
I mean, I didn't see a
oh,
single one that was less than 64.
yeah, pick a random one out. Go to the next page and just pick a random one out and see what happens. There we go.
Boop,
And
64.
all right, there we go. Every single time. Yeah, people just want to play Pokemon over there, man. There's a lot of people trying to play a lot of Pokemon.
Honestly, dude, it would be so cool to be like a part of that culture of like just local tournaments like every night of the week, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
that would
it would
definitely
feel
be
like the
interesting.
good old like city championship or city championship like marathons and stuff back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, I even said to my chat, brought it up to me because people have, like, whenever Champions Leagues happen, people ask me like, "Oh, would you ever go and play in a Champions League?" And you can't. You do have to be a resident in Japan. But
I
I mean,
saw
it'd be pretty
Sam Huff went
cool.
and played.
Really?
Yeah, he posted
Oh,
on
okay.
Facebook.
Yeah. For Champions or for City League or,
No, Champions League.
oh, really? Okay. I mean, I don't know the process to get into it. But yeah, my understanding is that you need some kind of like residency there. I mean, if I would be able to go over there and play in a Champions League, I definitely would. I
Yeah.
would definitely take the opportunity. It'd even be cool to like go over there for like a couple weeks and play in some city leagues, and then play in a Champions League, stuff like that. So that'd be really really cool for sure. But yeah, I don't know the situation for Sam. I don't know if he has like work over there or works over there or anything like that, because that would
He
be
may
maybe
have
the,
work over there, yeah.
yeah. So that might be the his in to being able to potentially play in those, get into the lottery system to play in a Champions League. But it's definitely something that'd be pretty cool to do. But as of right now, as far as I know, it's not something anyone can just do. Not anyone can just like sign up to get into the lottery to register to potentially play in a Champions League.
But yeah, speaking of the Champions League, I guess should we do the new cards now, I guess, before we hop into the
Yeah, we could do the new cards first.
results? That's not something we even talked about, but yeah, we definitely should talk about the
Yeah, the new
the
cards are
new
definitely worth talking
cards.
about. Well, there's
Um,
only like a couple of them. There's only like two. So
yeah. So they did during the stream, I mean, as we'll talked about a little earlier, they did announce the newest set coming out in Japan. Is going to be called Crimson Haze. It features Blood Moon Ursaluna right there on the front. So, um, yeah, and this is going to be cards that will be in our set that comes out before
May,
NAIC. Yeah, May. Um,
end of May. It'll be like 2 weeks before NAIC.
So
So
this is a for those of you who, like, play the video games, it seems like this is a, um set based around, like, Kitakami, like, the DLC, like, the in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, the, like, new region, which is where, like, little Diplin here comes from, Sinestri, I think is what this thing is called, Blood Moon, Ursaluna, they all come from that region, they're all part of that DLC, so I imagine, like, the next set will probably be around the next DLC,
yeah.
expansion. So,
Is that DLC expansion already out, or is it
it
coming
is,
out?
yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. We kind of already know what to expect a little bit as far as like the new Pokemon and stuff like that.
Yeah, probably. I mean, mostly it's like returning Pokemon, but that's where well, I don't know, it is kinda interesting because that's what like, where Raging Bolt and Gouging Fire, that's where those Pokemon were introduced for the first time, was in the
We already
most
got
recent,
those,
and we did
or
already
already
get
getting those.
those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah.
I guess the next set is also probably the Ogre Pond set, right? So maybe that's not quite right, but Ogre Pond is also like a Kitakami
Yeah.
section of the game, so maybe, like, the next 2 sets will be for them, Kitakami, and then it'll just combine to 1 set for us, who knows?
Yeah.
We should take off the tinfoil hat and just read the read the cards here. And the first one is Blood Moon Ursaluna um,
EX.
EX. It's a basic Pokemon, a colorless type, and its ability is Elder's Technique. This Pokemon's Blood Moon attacks cost 1 colorless less to use for each prize card your opponent has already taken. And then its attack, one single attack, is Blood Moon for 5 colorless energy, 240 damage, and this Pokemon can't attack during your next turn. They made Radiant Charizard a colorless bear.
Yeah. So it's basically what it is. Same ability, same attack, 10 less damage, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And it is colorless. So it is a two prize Pokemon. It does have more HP. And basically, you can play this in any deck as a Pokemon that can attack for one energy or like two energy as the game progresses. Less energy for each prize card your opponent has taken. So it'll be interesting. It'll be a good card it's a good card for sure.
Yeah, I think this
And
card is definitely just good.
yeah, it's just good, and it'll see play in a bunch of decks. I don't think like it doesn't create like any new archetypes, right?
Yeah.
It's not a new archetype type card, but it will.
Splashable, colorless Pokemon,
Yeah,
like,
it will change how
isn't
some
gonna
decks
be
are
something
built.
that creates a new archetype, right? But it's gonna be
Yeah,
something that, like, can just be good.
and I think the biggest thing that it could be good in would be control, to be honest, because we've already seen like some control builds have the Radiant Charizard in there. Um, which is good to be able to clear away like lone threats as the game progresses, as you get towards the end of the game. And now you could still play Radiant Charizard, or you could play something with 260 HP that you could then put a Hero's Cape on that has then 360 HP. Iono them to one, and then knock out their threat, and then yeah, you maybe just win from there. To be honest, so this thing could be pretty good in control for sure, and it'll definitely be good in other stuff as well because it is just such an efficient Pokemon, and the attack becomes very efficient as the game progresses.
Yeah, I mean,
And I
even just
guess
putting a Bravery Charm on this, right? Like,
yeah,
310
310
on a basic.
hitting for 240 like it's not bad for one
Yeah.
energy at the end of the game. Maybe two
You can
energy if you use
penny,
it a little
pick
bit
it up.
sooner.
Yep.
Yep, exactly. So definitely a very strong card that'll be splashed into quite a few decks throughout its existence.
And it is a basic. I think there were some people that were, like, a little confused. It's like, it's an Ursaluna. Ursaluna is a stage 2. Why is it a basic? But Blood Moon Ursaluna is, like, its own unique thing, so I think that's why.
Yeah.
Little Pokemon lore there that Azul can't provide, but I can every once in a while. And then, the next new one here, this is another one that seems pretty good. It is the
Yeah.
Iron Thorns EX. It's a future Pokemon, a lightning type, 230 HP Pokemon, 4 retreat cost, weak to fighting, and it has the ability Initialize. While this Pokemon is in the active spot, Pokemon with a rule box in play, except any future Pokemon, don't have any abilities. And then its attack for a lightning and 2 colorless, Bolt Cyclone 140, and you move 1 energy from this Pokemon to one of your benched Pokemon. So some form of ability control has come back into the game after Path of the Peak will be rotating.
Yeah, so Path to the Peak is gone. But we're about to get Iron Thorns. We'll be getting Iron Thorns in not too long. And yeah, basically is like Path to the Peak, right? Shuts down the rule box Pokemon. It is a Pokemon itself that is doing it, and it does have to be in the active. But it has like a decent attack, right? Hitting for
Yep.
140, you're carrying the low HP stuff, you're setting up 2 KOs on the bigger HP stuff. So if you're drastically slowing down your opponent while you're drawing some prize cards, that sounds pretty good to me. And then even like late game situations, like up against something like a potential Charizard or Guardy EX, like you go Ion with them low, put this in your active, and then they can't set up a new Charizard through its ability. They can't use Pidgeot EX potentially. Like you can like take over games in like comeback situations, or even open up with this early on in games as well, to slow them down. Like this definitely seems like a pretty powerful card and could be like kind of maybe the missing piece for control, I guess, or not control for excuse me
Like a
for
future
future
box deck,
box for like
yeah.
future box. Although maybe you just play this with Iron Hands and it's just those two as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think this would fit pretty nicely into the top 16, Turbo Iron Hands deck that we'll talk about here in a little bit, but a lot of people were comparing this to Empoleon V, and it might feel a little similar, like, its attack is pretty similar, right? It's a
Yep.
2 prize Pokemon that turns off abilities, but, like, Empoleon V's ability is so much less limiting than Iron Thorns is, right? It's like Empoleon V only shuts down non-rule box basic Pokemon. Like it doesn't even shut down something like a Baxcalibur, right?
Yeah.
This one also doesn't shut down Baxcalibur, doesn't shut down Comfey, but it does shut down Charizard. It does shut down Pidgeot. It does shut down Squawkabilly. Like there's so much stuff that this thing deactivates. Yeah, and there's no escape rope in the format as well right now,
See,
so
it
people
shuts
can't just
down
like push
Lugia
it
V
out of the
Star.
active.
It shuts down Lugia V Star. That kind of sucks. Like,
That is true too.
and
Yep.
then you knock them out. You do. They're weak to lightning, so you just knock them out. You 280. Can't use your ability, and you're knocked out.
The game
Good luck.
designers foresaw Lugia V Star winning the Champions League this weekend.
Yeah, and they're like, we have to put a stop to it. Can't let Lugia get good again. Iron Thorns. Honestly, is this like a card to potentially combat future Lugia decks? Like, okay, there's always gonna be something good in the meta that can handle Lugia. This is yeah, has the number to one hit KO Lugia V Star, and then also takes away their ability, which is gonna make it really hard to ever use Summoning Star. Maybe. We'll see what future energy they give, or not future. We'll see what special energy they end up giving to Lugia as we progress.
Next one here is the Unfair Stamp, an item card, a brand new A spec. So once again, you can only play one of these in your deck. I think a lot of people saw the reveal and they were like, "Oh my gosh, it's Reset Stamp as an A spec," but there's a green stamp in addition to the red stamp here. Yeah, you can only play this card if one of your Pokemon was knocked out during your opponent's last turn. Each player shuffles their hand into their deck, then you draw 5 cards, and your opponent draws 2 cards. This seems pretty good, Azul.
Yeah, I think it is going to be pretty good. The unfair stamp, and it's cool to see because like this is not a card that I would have been able to come up with as like a car as an A spec that it feels like it rivals Prime Catcher in terms of potential power level in the game. But I think this one does, and it gives me hope for the other A specs that they still have yet to come out with. If they can come out with like one or two more A specs that feel this powerful, like kind of Prime Catcher does, like this does, then I think we're going to be in a pretty good spot for the A specs not feeling like they kind of hurt the game more than help it. I think some people are a little bit scared of how toxic this card could possibly be. You know, you go first, then your opponent knocks out one of your Pokemon, and then turn two, you go Candy, Charizard, Unfair Stamp, Counter Catcher. And it's like, well, that sucks. So I think the what I've seen a little bit of a discussion around it as well is then it's like, well, what if you just wait? What if you just don't take that first knockout, set up your board first a little bit more before getting too aggressive,
And I
and you have
think
to
it's
take your
really
time.
cool that we could be in a format, like, in certain matchups where that's what you have to do, right?
You gotta wait.
You
Can't take
gotta
that
take
knockout
it
yet.
slower, you gotta think about it for a second.
Yeah. I mean, it's an A spec. Will they have it? Who knows? But with stuff like Arvin and Irida, even, I've said there's some decks based around that. They're gonna have quite a bit of access to finding the something like the unfair stamp pretty aggressively. So yeah, I'm kind of excited for it. I think it'll bring a little bit more of a potential balance to the gameplay or a good feel to gameplay overall. And actually, that's something like I don't talk about this much, or I usually don't have very many cards that I would like look at. I'm like, I wish this card they reprinted it, or didn't. I almost have no cards where I ever like care about it rotating, or not. But I think honestly, I think Path to the Peak was a really good card for the. It was a very healthy card in the format. And if I could have picked a card, to be honest, for them to reprint, now that I've kind of thought about it a little bit more, kind of seen the impact that it had and doesn't have now, honestly, I kind of wish that Path to the Peak was reprinted. Not overly. I think they're doing a really good job at coming up with cool interactions and keeping the format and meta feeling good and healthy. We are kind of in a long format right now, so it's getting a little bit boring, of course, currently. But we're about a month away now from Temporal Forces ourselves, so we're getting there. And yeah, I think that the reset stamp or unfair stamp, whatever, looks like a pretty good card, and I'm pretty excited for it because I think it'll add like some good dynamics to the gameplay.
Another one here is the Screamtail EX. It's an ancient Pokemon, 190 HP psychic type with one retreat, weak to dark, resistant to fighting. It has the attack Sudden Shriek. You can use this attack only if you go second and only during your first turn. During your opponent's next turn, they can't play any supporter cards from their hand. And then its second attack is Crunch 120, discard energy from your opponent's active Pokemon. This one
It's like
doesn't
you go
stand
with
out to
those.
me as super good.
I mean, the first attack, if you could consistently pull it off going second and then not like overextend to have to get it set up, and then also have it not be a huge liability by it being on your bench, taking up a bench space, plus being a two prizer with 190 HP.
A lot of ifs there.
Well, yeah, but honestly, like if you think about it, if you go first and you do your thing, and then your opponent goes sudden shriek, you're just like, I guess I pass. Like that's
Yeah.
usually going to be what your turn is, right? So honestly, I don't. I mean, if you can get that to work, then that seems pretty good.
It
But
does
I don't
cost a
know.
colorless energy, so you
Yep.
could pretty easily jet this to the active.
Ooh, I didn't even think about that. I honestly did not even think about jetting this thing up. All right, we're kind of cooking here, Chip. Is that it? Is that the move? Could
Probably
be.
not. We'll see.
I think we can honestly skip.
Because like your opponent can just like choose to go second.
I mean, but then you get to go first. That'd be like the point. Is like I'm a behind because I went second. Okay, sudden shriek. Oh, I went first, so I'm where I want to
Yeah.
be.
It's got to be a very specific deck that's going to use this, but we'll see.
Jet energy would combo with it though. I didn't even think about the
Yeah.
jets. We can
So you
skip the
said
trainer
skip the
cards.
Perrin,
Yeah, we can go up until we get to there. It is. This is the one. I think it's the last one we need to take a look at here.
the enhanced hammer. Classic card. This is one that existed, I think, originally back in Dark Explorers, got reprinted in Primal
Did it a couple
Clash, got
times.
reprinted in Guardians Rising. It's been gone for quite some time, but here it is once again. Discard a special energy from one of your opponent's Pokemon.
Yep. And it's back once again. Once again, did they predict Lugia winning? I don't know. Obviously, Enhanced Hammer is not that good against Lugia. The main use would be you can get rid of their gift energy
Yeah.
and then knock out their setup threat, and then they don't get that draw power if you Iono them or disrupt their hand in some way. So, or if they have like just a low hand size, you want to take away their draw power. So, honestly, Enhanced Hammer's always been one of those cards where I feel like it would be always kind of
It's like a
almost
fine
healthy.
evergreen card, honestly.
Yeah, honestly, it's always kind of felt that way. Like if it existed in last format or the format before that, or continuously since it got printed for the first time, I don't think it would have been, ever been like a bad thing. Like the deck committal of a card like this to lose a deck space for a card that can only be used in certain matchups, but even in those matchups, it doesn't just win you the game pretty much ever. I think is like feels pretty fair and balanced, I guess. The only times it ever feels toxic is when it's paired with something that can really easily and aggressively recover it. So then you can kind of just run special energy decks out of energy and they don't really get to play the game. So it's the only time it can really ever feel like it's a little bit too much. But I don't think that happens uh, too often or comes up where there's a combination of cards that makes that work too often, to be honest. So. Yeah, I'm kind of excited for the. Or I'm like, okay, see, this seems like a good card to just kind of have around. I don't mind it being here.
And we got Lucky Helmet. You want to talk about Lucky Helmet?
Not really. Did they
Come
reprint
on, buddy.
Gyarados?
Lucky Helmet. Another reprint. Kind of interesting that they're cycling back. I mean, I think like Enhanced Hammer makes sense as a reprint.
It's a
What do you,
good
what do you think's
card.
going through their mind when Lucky Helmet gets added to the mix here?
I don't know. I mean, they did the same thing with Rocky Helmet, right? They brought back Rocky Helmet. Like, it's not a very good card.
Dude, I remember for a
Um,
long time, if you on TCGO, like if you queued into Legacy, um, you would either get someone who was like a true legacy player, had like a good deck, or you would get someone who just had like some random concoction of like legacy legal cards, like who didn't really like have a good competitive deck. And if you ever hit that person, anyone who played TCGO and played legacy can definitely relate to this. Like 100% of the time, they had Rocky Helmet in their deck. Like 100% of the time.
that's just like a known fact. If they don't have a real
Yeah,
deck, they have
Rocky
Rocky
Helmet, and then
Helmet.
also the Bouffalant. Wasn't there a Bouffalant that if you hit it, you took damage as well?
It does
What am I
sound
thinking?
familiar. Well, there's one that takes reduced damage. There was Boofer, but maybe there's
Yeah,
one where you take
maybe.
damage as well.
Yeah, it might have just been the one that takes reduced damage, to be honest. What am I thinking of? Is it maybe a Dredagon or something like that? Who knows?
Maybe. I mean, that ability definitely exists where when it gets hit, you take damage for hitting it.
Yes, yes. Rough skin, Dredagon. There he is. The Legacy Crusher. The
Put a
insane
Rocky helmet.
combo, rough skin plus plus Rocky helmet.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that card before. I think there was like was that card ever like played?
I don't think so.
Like its
I
clutch
think this
attack?
is the only Dredagon that was ever really played is the Revenge one from Flashfire
Yeah.
because
Why
it
was
can
that one?
knock
I don't
out
remember
Black
what was it
Kyurem
played in?
EX.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But yeah, those are the new cards. Shout outs to Twan for the translations as always.
I guess what
Basically
you could
always
look
use
up. You
their
don't even have to read the attack of this one, but we are getting the Diplin finally, which does tell us that we will be getting the the high was it Hydrapple or something
Hydrapple, yeah.
Hydrapple, yeah. So we have that on the way.
Yeah, I mean, and this that would fit with the theme as well of like, Diplin came out in the first DLC for Scarlet and Violet, and then Hydrapple came out in the second DLC for Scarlet Violet.
Yeah,
So we might not get Hydrapple even in this set, but it'll come eventually.
yeah. We'll get them eventually. It's on the way. Will it be good? Probably not.
Takes a
Although
lot for a dragon type Pokemon to be good.
they do like making the Apple cards like decent, right? They've always like made the Apple cards like even the other ones, the Appletons and the Flapples have all been decent.
Yeah.
Zorobox has taken advantage of them a couple times, so yeah, they've never been truly terrible cards. So maybe the Hydrapple will be the point for it to actually be a good one.
All right. Well, let's move on and talk about the actual results from the tournament. Let's finally finally get to that. And we've talked about it a couple times, but yes, indeed, it was Lugia V Star winning it all. Lugia Cinccino. Honestly, this list is pretty similar to a lot of the lists that were going around from the Champions Leagues. I think kind of the one thing that really stands out is the inclusion of Serena. That was kind of the one, like, I think more unexpected thing. But when you look at how the meta shaped up and how much Arceus stuff there was, I think it makes sense, right?
Well, yeah, there's that. It's like the pseudo gust effect, but then also it's a way for you to discard cards out of your hand without discarding your hand.
Yeah.
And this deck plays a lot of energy and wants to retain a lot of energy as well. So I think that's like it does like a lot for the. Also, you need like very little. I feel like for the deck to function, like you need the Lugia V, and then you need the Lugia V Star. Obviously, you want some Minchinos down,
It's
take your
like you need a
Chinchinos,
lot
but
initially, but then you need very little from there on out, right?
yeah. So
It's
just
a
like
deck
getting
that
the
plays very well
Archeops.
from the board.
Yeah, getting the Archeops to the discard pile is important, but once you do that, then get him to play, and then you're like kind of set up off the board from there. So you don't really need to draw a ton of cards with the research. The research's like main function is to like get Archeops into the discard pile. So if Serena can do that, which it can, and then it doesn't lose us all of our energy, and then we just lose the game because we run out of energy, and they can also double as a gust effect. Seems like a decent trade off, to be honest. It's very interesting. I don't know if it's better than just playing 4 research, but it does seem pretty decent, to be honest. And I
Well, it
actually thought
came up
you'd get
pretty
like
big for the guy in the finals, right? In game, he
yeah,
literally
he
used
did
all
use
4 of the
Serena.
cards.
All 4 Gus effects?
Yeah, he went Serena to discard Archeops,
Yeah.
and then he went Boss KO, Serena KO, Boss KO.
Yeah. I guess he did. I didn't really think about that, to be honest, but yeah, he did. He didn't actually attack with Cinchino in the matchup, even though it's like a pretty good attacker
He would have
against.
probably if he could have,
Yeah,
but
he could have, but the Minchino got boss KO'd.
yeah,
Minchino did not get to.
Minccino was getting hunted.
Yeah, because it's a pretty powerful attacker up against the 2 prize decks like the Arceus decks and stuff like that. But yeah, honestly, Lugia, it seems decent. The deck seems decent. Um, you got Lugia, still a very good attacker, can get you your first couple prize cards.
Doesn't
And
die to
then
Charizard.
yeah, you have Snorlax in there as well. Another way to get some prize cards without making an overly big commitment. But then you got the Chinchino in there being like, well, if I need a one hit KO, literally anything, as long as I have both my Archeops still left, I can go do that with the Chinchino.
Um, kind of, I don't know. What do you think about no Weird Ear being included in a lot of these Lugia lists? That's kind of a card that I've thought about as like would probably still be okay.
Well, I think you just like burn through your energy so much with the Chinchino, you never
I guess
retain
so,
enough.
but like sometimes
Yeah.
they don't. I don't know. I guess you basically are always expecting a Chinchino to go down.
And also Chinchino just hits harder than Weird Air. So like if you don't lose that energy very fast, if you're attacking with Lugia's early or Snorlax, then the Chinchino just does what the Weird Air does anyways, right?
Yeah.
If you don't burn through a bunch of energy. So Yeah, I think you'd rather just play more Cinccino pieces probably before you'd ever play the Weird Air, just so you have more Cinccinos and more consistently can attack with Cinccino.
I guess, before we get into more of the results from the top 16 here, Azul, did you have any, like, kind of big takeaways from watching the tournament? What, like, it seemed like the meta felt like, what the decks that seemed like they were performing the best most consistently, or, like, just overall, like, "Oh, this deck seems like it's gonna be really good in the meta."
Nothing overly. It felt like there was a lot of Charizard, and then like a decent amount of the decks were like like we even still see 3 Charizard in top 16, and it did feel like there was a decent amount of Charizard hate. And I think we can go to the second place list to see a little bit of it there, as it is a Arceus Vulpix deck. The purpose of the Vulpix is to beat Charizard because it has an attack. Was it Icy Snow or something?
Snow
100
Mirage.
Snow Mirage, 160 damage, and then it has Shred, so it ignores all effects on the active Pokemon, which isn't very relevant unless you go up against a Mimikyu, which we did see. We did watch a game where it was Arceus, this deck up against a control deck, and they kind of, yeah, it was pretty easy for the between the Arceus and a Mimikyu to basically win that matchup. But the second part of the attack is that it can't be hit by any Pokemon that have an ability. So Radiant Charizard can't hit it. Charizard can't hit it. If you play the Charmeleon with an ability, you can't hit it. Pidgeot can't hit it. B-Barrel can't hit it. Like you literally just have like nothing to hit this thing with except Charmanders, but Charmanders aren't going to beat 240 HP. So the answer really is to try and pull off some combination of like boss plus counter catcher or boss plus prime catcher to reset the effect on the Vulpix. But there's a 2/2 Vulpix in here. And then also throw a scenario to get yourself down to like lone Vulpix board states or even the Charon's Care to help yourself get down to lone Vulpix board states are both possible. So overall, yeah, I think it's got probably a pretty good Charizard matchup. Of course, I have to like actually play it to know
I
for
think it's got a
sure.
good Chien-Pao matchup too, which is probably one of the other more
Yeah,
popular decks in the room, right? Like, there's nothing in the Chien-Pao deck that can hit that thing except Iron Hands EX, really, and then
actually, I think you beat them with Iron Hands. So I think like, you're just gonna win the trade because Iron Hands
I
2 it KOs it
guess.
back and forth.
But it's like if you
Yeah,
can I guess they can always reset up the Iron Hands pretty
yeah.
much,
I
right?
mean, this build has a Prime Catcher and 4 Boss, so you could just like boss their B barrels and their back caliber, and you could just make them whiff attacks. Like
Yeah.
that's what you probably do is you just ignore the Chien-Paos and you just go after the back calibers and the B barrels with this deck in that matchup.
Yeah, and then make it
Um,
hard for them to set up an Iron Hands.
Yeah, and then we see a bunch of different special energy in here. You got the mist energy to play around the roaring moon and the attack from the Star Requiem from Giratina, or even like stopping Sableye stuff. And you have the V Guard in there for the Tina matchup as well. And there's the medical energy, which I don't know which matchup this is played for, but when you attach it from your hand to one of your Pokemon, you heal 30 damage from it. So it's either
Yeah.
to keep your Arceus alive a little bit longer or to keep your Vulpix alive a little bit longer in like certain
Yeah, I
situations.
wonder if this is something to do with, like, just the fact like, most decks just naturally, if they're not, like, thinking of Vulpix, they don't have, like, a good way to deal with a Vulpix, and so a lot of times people have to just kinda, like, scrap together random little
Yeah.
attacks, right? And Medical Energy
Piece it
probably just
together.
negates those little attacks, right?
Yeah, I have to imagine, yeah, there's, like, has to be some scenarios in some matchups where they're, like, just poking you down, and they can almost win unless you have a medical energy, and then you just win. Um, and then,
Now,
well,
there
one
is a
more thing I was
card that
gonna
Charizard could pretty reasonably play that just, like, beats
yeah,
Vulpix.
actually, this is what I was gonna mention, yeah, the new card coming out, Gouging Fire. And we actually did see a Charizard deck playing it. They got to, like, KO an Arceus turn 2 with their Gouging Fire attack. Um, but yeah, it does 260 for fire colors, and it has like a unique effect on the attack that we haven't really seen before. I don't think you can't attack with the second attack on gouging fire until it leaves the active,
Yeah.
but it's a continuous effect. It's not you can't do this on the next turn or you can't attack next turn. It's until this leaves the active, you can't use this attack, which is interesting because I don't think we've ever seen that before on a Pokemon.
Yeah.
And then it's first. You do have the first attack, so you still could use Heat Blast for 60. But yeah, 260. Vulpix has 240 HP. You knock out Vulpix. So this would be a pretty easy answer for Charizard to include to beat Vulpix. So I don't think Vulpix is like Arceus Vulpix is not a good deck. It's a meta deck, right? It's a meta call deck. Like we've seen
Yeah,
a lot of
and
Arc
honestly,
Piles pop
super
up
sick meta
before.
call for this tournament, so shout
Yeah.
outs to this player for that,
Because I
because
think Charizard was by far the most popular deck, and it was hated on quite a bit. We'll go through a couple more lists here, and we can kind of see the Charizard hate stack up. Another deck that just has a good Charizard matchup is third place, which is the third place, eighth place, 11th place, Snorlax Control. It's still here. Echoing Horn's gone, and this list doesn't even play the Mantine. And the Mantine basically tries to replace Echoing Horn. So basically, your win condition with the Snorlax deck is always trap something in the active. You got Erica's invitation to interact with your opponent's hand to take Pokemon from there, put it on their bench, and bring it to the active. and then you have Echoing Horn. Before rotation, you had Echoing Horn, so your opponent couldn't just Ultra Ball away all of their basic Pokemon you were trying to trap, and then couldn't interact with them. So you could Echoing Horn it out of the discard pile. So your opponent couldn't actually Ultra Ball those Pokemon to the discard pile. And what we've seen people try and replace that with is the Mantine, which puts a basic Pokemon on either player from either player's discard pile onto that player's bench for a colorless energy. But this build that got third place actually doesn't play the Mantine, which was interesting. Actually, I didn't even really realize that, but Mantine can actually get Pokemon, your own Pokemon as well, if you really wanted to.
If you really
Um,
wanted to, if you're
yeah.
really desperate for another Snorlax or something like that,
I mean,
it
if
probably
another Mimikyu wins you the game potentially or something like
yeah,
that,
true.
then
That's true. It's true.
yeah, this
Um,
list doesn't play the Mantine.
yeah, the thing. So I'm not surprised that Snorlax is still good, right? It really didn't lose that much to
And
rotation.
Echoing Horn's pretty. I think it would like to have Echoing Horn back, but yeah,
Of
true.
course, but it's like a manageable loss, right? Like the core of the
Seems like it.
archetype is still here. Counter Catcher plus Snorlax and Erica's Invitation, right? And it did get a little bit of a boost as well with the Eerie, this new supporter, which is like crazy, crazy good for a deck strategy like this.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised to see that Snorlax is still good in this format. I am a little surprised to see that it succeeded in Japan's format, right? Because we play a 50-minute best of 3, but in Japan, they play a 25-minute best of 1, and a tie equals a double game loss for both
Yep.
players. And I think part of
Yeah.
that, like, because of the format is probably one of the main reasons that we see that these players are including the Chi Yu EX in their list. I think 2 of the 3 players had the Chi Yu EX in their deck.
Yeah, just discard the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck. Maybe they would play the Crabominable if that was still legal. The Crabominable did the same thing for Water Energy, but you also can make your opponent second guess about a Radiant Charizard if you do play the Fire Energy.
Yeah.
So you got that going for you as well. And yeah, the new addition of Eerie between Chi Yu plus Eerie, I mean, it was enough, right? There was 3 Snorlaxes in top 16. And 2 of them went a little bit further. And the Eerie does offer up like you do lose the Echoing Horn as like a win condition, but the Eerie offers up like a new win condition of run your opponent out of switch cards, which if you because the only way you had to interact with your opponent's deck pre Eerie was Misfortune Sisters to discard switch cards out of their deck. But if they ever got the switch cards in their hand and could just keep them there, then you'd have to like do a combination of Iono plus somehow make your opponent shuffle their deck so the switch cards aren't just on the bottom of the deck. So you'd have to like Misfortune Sisters twice to force the shuffle of their deck
Yeah.
to then be able to have Misfortune Scissors interact with the switch cards. But now you can just Eerie them. And you look at their hand, you can see what's going on as well, right? So all of a sudden it could turn a pretty bad turn into, oh, wait, they don't have access to this or that. And now I can make this play because I've seen their hand with Eerie, right? So yeah, Erie's definitely a big boost, offers up some new win conditions where you can kind of get the switch cards out of their hand as opposed to them just kind of holding them for as long as they possibly can. I think Echoing Horn was definitely a hit, but like we said, the Mantine exists, but we see this list doesn't even have Mantine. So yeah, Eerie plus the Hero's Cape being the big
I think the
boosts.
10th place list here, yeah, they did have the
I
Mantine.
think both of the lists had Mantine, if I'm
This one
not
had
mistaken.
Noivern EX as
But yeah,
well.
this one had some interesting 2 Mimikyu. What does the Squavette even do? There's a
It just
Squavette in
discards
here.
the top card of your opponent's deck. So
Oh,
it's
so it's
like
like Chi
because
Yu
they
Light.
don't play fire energy, right? Because they play colorless
Oh,
energy for the Noivern.
and they have that what does the covert flight do again? Can't be hit by basic Pokemon?
Yeah. Your
What is
during your
that
opponent's next turn,
beating?
prevent damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from basic Pokemon.
What is that beating? Iron
Uh,
Hand?
yeah,
Chien-Pao?
yeah, Iron Hands. Not really Chien-Pao, they can attack with Baxcalibur, right?
Yeah.
It beats the Ancient Box deck if
Okay,
they don't have a
maybe.
Roaring Moon EX.
Okay. I'm not convinced that that is good, to be honest.
It's a lot of deck space
I'm
for
curious on the
kinda
matchups
more
where it's, like,
fringe
most
matchups, it
impactful.
seems like.
Yeah. I'm not sure about the Noivern. Also, they only play 1 Ultra Ball. Oh, I guess you have Arven, though, to find it, plus 4 Seal Stone. So you can get that. You can get, like, a turn 2 Noivern, actually. That actually wouldn't be too ridiculous. I guess you only have 4 energy, but between 4 Seal Stone plus Arven plus Ultra Ball, you might be able to get there. Yeah, so then I guess the Squavette replaces the GU in that aspect, but basically the exact same kind of list here, right? Like nothing too crazy different.
Yeah,
Take a
yeah,
look at the,
nothing.
the 8th place list, I guess, real fast. See if they had anything wild. But they had
They
the
did have the
Mantine.
Mawile.
Yeah, once again, nothing too crazy different here either. Or
Um,
Temple of Sinnoh.
and then kind of in the same
Jets.
vein, these are control decks, but there was also a mill deck that did pretty well on the weekend. Is this the player that went 9-0 in day
Yeah, they
1?
started 9-0 in day 1. Then we saw them round 1 of day 2, and they started off 10-0, I believe. And if I'm not mistaken, someone was saying in my chat that this is one of the Elite Four members over in Japan as well. So don't quote me on that, but
They did, I believe, win, yeah, Japan Nationals back in 2022.
Oh, with the Reggies, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, the mill deck, it looks pretty good. It looks decent for sure. They made it look pretty good.
I think
Um,
the innovation here of the one Comfey with the two, what is this, emergency board? Yeah,
yeah.
emergency board is actually pretty cool because I think that's one thing I had heard from people who were trying this deck is that, if something just knocked out your Great Tusk every single turn, you were kind of left scrambling.
Yeah, but that
And so
extra
Comfey's not here to, put cards in your lost zone. It's just like here to help you draw cards, right? Help you
yeah, like,
see
you'd
more
probably
stuff.
play Mysterious Tail Mew if that was still legal.
Yeah.
Maybe though, maybe you would play this over that, but Mysterious Tail Mew to get Pokegear to get a supporter sounds pretty good. Find your Pal Pads, find your Super Rod. But we don't have Mysterious Tail Mew anymore. But we do have the board, and Comfey is kind of the only. I mean, we see this a lot in Pokemon where we do when we do have something access to like an air balloon or a float stone. A lot of decks play like these Pokemon to send up
A little
at the
pivot.
beginning of your turn, yeah, to then pivot into your next attacker or give you the option of going from attacker A or attacker B, depending on how you draw, and get you some like value, right? And we see here it's got to utilize that Comfy for that value. Every time a Great Tusk gets knocked out, you get a flower selecting, right? That's like plus over the course of the game. That could be plus, 5, even 6 cards if you start with it. And then you're also lost owning 5 or 6 cards that are ideally not game ending for you to all of a sudden lost zone, and makes it so that you can actually have a higher chance of getting through your deck and actually pulling off consistent Great Tusk attacks. So
So a lot of times these decks do have kind of a harder time winning when you play against people who are like a little bit more skilled, right? A little bit more experienced, people
yeah,
who have played against these like types of strategies before. They'll slow things down. They don't really play a lot of cards out of their hand, out of their deck if they don't have to. But I mean, you still got to play something, right? And like we see that they're playing stuff to try to mess with their opponent as much as they can. The counter catcher, um, and then, like, I mean, this thing does mill a lot of cards. 4 cards a
yeah,
turn
for every
does
turn.
stack up pretty quickly. I mean, what, you need 9 turns, I think, to deck your opponent out with this, something like that?
Yeah, so you got the counter catchers and you have the tool cards as well to make it harder for your Great Tusk to get KO'd. If your opponent whiffs an attack or two, they can all of a sudden get put in a situation or whiffs a KO or two in a row. They can put in a situation where they just can't win the game anymore before you mill them out. And then you got the Eerie in here as well to be a little bit disruptive. Try and combo with that counter catcher. Take some switch cards out of their hand or whatever it might be, and then try and trap something in the active with the counter catcher. Or like even get rid of stuff like super rods and pal pads, things that you can use to recover cards. I think the one thing we could see here is there's no hand clippers in this build, which is interesting. Hand clippers, new item card. You is it you and your opponent?
I think it's just your opponent.
Oh, is it just your opponent? For some reason, I thought it was both. Well, your opponent discards until they have 5 cards left in hand. So one of the things you can do. Oh no, both players
It is
discard their
both
hand. Yeah,
players,
until
sorry,
they have
yeah.
5. So yeah, both players discard their hand until they have 5 cards left in their hand. The reason this is so powerful against your opponent is you are trying to mill out their deck. But what one of the strategies implemented against mill decks is find a shuffle draw supporter or a supporter that puts your hand back in your deck and then draws cards afterwards, like a judge, like an Iono. Hold on to it until you are low in deck size, don't have that many prize cards left. Play it, and then put all those cards in your hand back in your deck that you've been top decking and drawing off your prize cards for the last couple turns, and then up your deck size overall after that turn. So the hand clippers, like theoretically, is good for that reason. So even if they make that play happen, maybe you still win with the Great Tusk eventually. We obviously no hand clippers here in this build specifically.
Yeah, and they did have the one Mimikyu, a couple Psychic Energy as well. It feels like most decks in the format do have an answer for the Mimikyu for the most
I'm not
part.
sure what matchup. I mean, it could force your opponent to play the game. It could be one thing, right? You go up against like an Arctina, and it's like they have one arc hitting you, and they're like, all right, then you're like, okay, send a Mimikyu, and now they have to create a Tina with Shred to actually match your Mimikyu, right?
Sure.
So if, like for situations like that, I
Forces
feel
them
like
to play
is
cards, pull cards out of
yeah.
their deck.
Go up against
Yeah.
Charizard. They're attacking with Charizard. You send a Mimikyu. Now they have to set up the Charmeleon, right? Or you will eventually win with the Mimikyu.
So
You
yeah,
have
this
to.
is definitely an interesting one. And now, I mean, I guess it's time we finally talk about BDIF, most popular deck. Who knows? But it
Definitely most
is
popular.
the Charizard. And it does seem like Charizard Bibarel has emerged as the more popular way to play it. So first off,
We
let's
did see that
address
last
that.
format though.
We
We
did
did
see
see that
that
at the
last
beginning.
format.
Yeah, at the beginning of Paradox Red format, it was kind of the same thing, and we eventually made our way back to the Pidgeot build. I honestly don't know which one is better. There's no path now, So there is like maybe less reason to play B barrel, but there's the other reasons why B barrel is better. Less two prize liabilities on board, a little bit lower to the ground, a little bit more straightforward.
You can buddy
Um,
poffin for Bidoof, you can't buddy poffin for, Rotom.
yeah, the access to Rotom is a thing as well. So yeah, I'm actually not really too sure which one is more powerful. I actually saw two or three people in the tournament playing B barrel and Pidgeot. The ultimate consistency draw power on board. They're like 2-2 B barrel with a 101 Pidgeot, which is interesting. And maybe that is the better way to go, just have everything. But yeah, we saw the most successful build here be a B barrel build, but there was still a Pidgeot build and cut as well. And we see this one, one big discussion that's kind of popped up is Prime Catcher versus Maximum Belt and Charizard decks, and we see Prime Catcher here in this one.
Yeah, this one did go with the catcher. They also are playing the Cryptomaniacs Deciphering, which is kind of interesting, or decoding. I don't know. We don't know what the actual name of this card is going to be. Codebreaker
Codebreaker
Solution.
Solution, of course. Yeah.
I've seen multiple translations for this
It's
card, so
everything. It's everything.
but yeah, this is like a reprint card of, a couple older cards in the game, Mallow and Oracle, but you just search your deck for two cards, put them on top of your deck in any order.
Yeah. So you can then use B barrel to draw into them, or if you're afraid of getting Iono, you can just leave them there. Like if you have everything you need for turn, you can end your
It
turn
is a
by
little bit of an Iono proof option,
yeah.
right?
And that's actually why we maybe have started to see. This is what someone mentioned in my chat earlier. Is like that's a reason to like start to play Roxanne as opposed to just Ionos and stuff like Charizard potentially,
Or
because then you
Judge.
can yeah. Well, judges, I mean, getting 4 cards versus 2 is a pretty big difference. So
Sure,
if you could
sure.
still want to go towards
You
the
can play Judge
Roxanne.
more often in the game, though.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know which build of Charizard is best to be honest. I've not played at all in the format, so I think it could definitely be a situation just like last format though, where it's like, well, Pidgeot's still just better. We just need to wait until we get there.
This list was pretty interesting. They had the Iron Bundle in here, and then they also did still play the Pokemon V with the Forest Seal Stone.
Honestly, it feels like people. I mean, that might just be a tech for the Vulpix, to be honest. That
The
could be a tech
Bundy,
for
yeah, sure.
yeah. They do have the Prime Catcher in here as well, which would be able to
Is that a
move it
better tech
around.
than
But
Gouging Fire?
I don't know. I mean, it has other situations where it's good as well, right? It's kind of like Escape Rope has always been
So does
felt like a
Gouging Fire.
yeah, of course. But you're putting like a lower HP 2 prizer in your active. Like Escape Rope's always been a good card in Charizard. So if you can kind of replicate that with the Iron Bundle, maybe that's what they're kind of going for here. They do have a switch card in here as well, but I could see that being their reasoning for wanting the Iron Bundle, just to be able to push your opponent's active out of the way, just knock out the next thing with Charizard.
Yeah, bundle the
Guarantee your prize
Vulpix
card
to
on
the
this side.
bench and then Prime Catcher or boss it back up.
Yeah, something like that, maybe. Not too
Um,
sure.
and then here's the Pidgeot Zard build. They got top 16. The interesting thing to me in this
Yeah.
list is the inclusion of the Hero Cape as the A spec. No Prime Catcher, no Maximum Belt. It is the Hero Cape.
Yeah. So I think that heavily plays around the maximum belt in mirror match. You can play around that. You can put that on your Pidgeot. Because now with maximum belt, after your opponent draws 2 prize cards, you can boss KO their Pidgeot with a maximum belt, which is kind of scary, or counter catcher it. And then also against Tina, like Arctina, maximum belt plays around Arctina.
Uh,
With
Hero's
their
Cape
maximum belt.
does force Chin Pao to have all 8 of their water
Yeah.
energy in play in order to knock
Yeah.
out your Charizard, so that is a thing as
That's
well.
the thing. And then also Virizion can't KO a Charizard with the Hero's Cape. So
Oh, yeah.
there is some value there. There is some value. I don't know if
Let's
like
see. Yeah.
it's not very good in the mirror match overall because like Charizard plays vacuum, right? Every Charizard deck plays a vacuum still, which makes sense because you have Arvin. So for mirror match tech, it's not great. So I think it'd be coming up a little bit short in the mirror match. If you come up a little bit short in the mirror match, if you're playing a Hero's Cape and your opponent has Prime Catcher or the Maximum Belt. But if mirror match isn't the number one priority, then all of a sudden the Hero's Cape becomes pretty good, I feel like.
There were a couple of Lost Box builds in the top 8. Another deck that, doesn't really lose too terribly much to the rotation. You lose Battle VIP Pass, but you get the Buddy Poffin, which is, almost the same thing in a lot of scenarios. You can't get Greninja, can't get Sableye, can't get Cramorant, but it's still like obviously very powerful. You do get the emergency board, which is honestly really nice as well.
Yeah, constant pivot for your Comfy.
More lost
I
vacuum targets as well. Prime
honestly
Catcher is pretty good in the deck too.
the lack of Ditto surprised me. I don't think any of the Lost Zone decks played Ditto, which you can Poffin for, and then that can become a Cram, or even depending on how what your hand composition is, it could become something like a Greninja.
Or,
right?
like, Raikou V to, like, turn 1 attack if you have a
Yeah.
pop off, yeah.
Yeah, so I was really surprised to see the lack of Ditto in here, to be honest. I don't know. Not sure about that. Besides that, it is just a Lost Zone deck, right? There's not too much to talk about here. It's just kind of the hands moon build that we've seen before. There was another one at the bottom there. They had the TM Crisis in here, Crisis Punch, both having the Iron Bundle to play around. Actually, what we saw a couple of Charizard players playing was Fluttermane. There was some Fluttermanes out there in the Charizard deck, so I think that's the reason for the Iron Bundle here is to have an out to that Fluttermane because Fluttermane only interacts with the opponent's active Pokemon's abilities. It shuts that down no matter what the active Pokemon is. It doesn't have an ability, and except for Fluttermane or Fluttering of the Night. So against Comfeys, you just completely shut down their Comfeys. And now that Escape Rope's not in Lost Zone decks, you don't really need like in the past to play around Lost Zone decks as Comfeys, Lost Boxes Comfeys, you needed double Klefki in play to play around Escape Rope. But with the Fluttermane and Escape Rope gone, you can get a Fluttermane there. And actually, Fluttermane has like an okay attack if your opponent's doing nothing, right? 90, put 2 damage counters on your opponent's bench Pokemon any way you like.
Yeah.
KO a Comfey, 20 to something, while you're just sitting there building up your board as Charizard or something.
Yeah, this is another card that's definitely, like, just good.
People got the and also like the idea of escape roping your opponent has always been good in Lost Zone decks. So the Iron Bundle is also there for that. It's a out to the Fluttermane. It's an out to hey, I don't want to hit your active with my Cram turn 1, so I'm gonna go ahead and use Iron Bundle. Now you have to give me something else.
And then another deck that was pretty well represented in the top 16 here, and I would say probably throughout the tournament as well, is the Arctina. It's back, baby.
Yeah. So speaking of,
Arctina.
I was talking about decks that were like teched out for Charizard. This list has the Verzian, Iron Leaves, the Maximum Belt, and 2 TM Devolution. They just like
And too eerie.
and to Erie, they were just done. They were like, you know what? I'm sick of Charizard. I hate Charizard. Everything in. And
Yeah.
then like I imagine they probably beat every single Charizard they played against.
I
More
think
than in
that
break.
this combo of cards seems insane. TM Devo plus Eerie.
Against Charizard.
I mean, against anything with rare candy in it, really.
Charizard.
Right now, yeah.
I guess honestly, Chi and Pow, you could get some value there as well. All right. I could see it. Yeah. TMD with the squad. Take away you if you
There was a
catch some
couple
like
Gardevoir on the
superiors.
stream throughout the weekend. It wasn't super popular, obviously, but
Yeah.
that's another thing that exists, right?
If you catch superiors as well against like that matchup. Like
Yeah,
you don't
how
have
often
path,
when you've
but
played Chien Pao in the past have you been like, "Okay, I need all 4 of my superior to win this game?"
not very often, to be honest, but you usually need 3.
Yeah, you
But if
did, yeah,
them
sure,
just
sure,
catching
sure.
1 can definitely make things awkward for sure, to be honest. Like, them
'Cause a
even just
lot of
catching
times you do
1.
discard 1 with, an Ultra Ball or something like that
Yeah, for
somewhere
sure.
along the
So,
way.
yeah, honestly, for the Chien-Pao matchup as well, the Erie's pretty good. And then we do see the Gardevoir, the Radiant, Gardevoir. Usually, there's not a Radiant Pokemon played in most Arctina builds, but, it does reduce the damage that your opponent's Pokemon do to your Pokemon. So, it's basically there to pair up with your Arceus and Tina's into opposing Tina's, where their
Yeah.
lost impact can't KO your Tina or your Arceus, or yeah, Tina or your Arceus with a lost impact. So got that going for you for a mirror match tech right there.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think. I don't think there's really any other super relevant interactions. It would stop like a Raikou from KOing a 220 HP Pokemon like
Yeah,
the Iron Leaves, but yeah, it's really just for the Tina.
but if you just don't bench the Radiant Gardevoir, they can't KO you anyway.
It's the same thing. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. Um,
There was another Arctina. We can take a look at that list real fast.
yeah, it was
Less
a
teched
little
out for
different.
Charizard, but it
Yeah.
has grabbers. It's got some grabbers in there. I don't know how to feel about that, to be honest.
What are
That's
we
an
grabbing,
interesting.
Azul?
I guess we're going like Iona or Judge and then Grabber or Charizard. I mean, it's not bad. I don't dislike it. I don't hate it. But there's only 2 Judge in this build as well, which is interesting. Like we're playing Grabbers, but only have 2 Judge. But also with so many, one thing I did point out with this is with so many hand disruption supporters, sometimes it's just nice to look at your opponent's hand before you Judge or Iona them. You're like, oh
That's
wait, your
true. Yeah.
hand's dead. All right, I'm not gonna play this. I'm just gonna punch your active. So that's something I guess that's in here for
Bring
sure.
back Lavender Town. Come on.
Yeah, bring back Lavender Town. Honestly, that wouldn't be like a terrible stadium to play. Just have the information of your opponent's hand, especially if you're playing like a B barrel deck where like you could still have anything on your next turn, irrelevant if they see your hand. Getting the information on their hand could be worth it for sure.
It's true. And then there was a couple other decks here to talk about. There's the Ancient Box that got ninth place. We don't have the deck list for that one.
Unlucky.
There is a lost Tina here, losing Path to the Peak. A lot of people thought that would be pretty bad for the lost Tina, and it is pretty bad, but
It is pretty bad. Yeah, I
the
think it
deck
is pretty
does
bad.
still have some life in it. I mean, all its attackers are still here. No battle VIP pass, but still have Nest Ball. You got the Buddy Poffin,
Getting the Iron Leaves for the Charizard matchup.
the Prime Catcher, the emergency board, the Tech Forest Sealstone in the
Yeah.
Tina deck.
I'm not sure how I feel about that, but it is like I did like if you don't really Star Requiem's like really good against the Charizard matchup, but if you're not up against the Charizard matchup, it definitely becomes a little bit less important. So having the Force Seal Stone in there, I don't hate, but I'm not sure I like it either. And actually, this is another list where I was surprised there was no Ditto because like Abyss Seeking turn one happens pretty often. Sure, you can't jet up the Ditto and then make the Ditto into the Tina, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of times where you do attach a basic energy to a
I think if
Tina,
you could do that,
switch card it
Ditto
to
would
the
be
active.
so much better.
Oh, yeah, then it would be insane. Then it would be
Yeah.
insanely good for sure. But yeah,
Yeah.
once again, I'm still kind of surprised to not see the Ditto here. But
And then the last list to talk about, we actually got to hop over to TCG Legends. So the guy who got what 14th
14th.
place, I think he put his deck list behind a paywall, right? But someone posted it online, and then Alex over here at TCG Legends posted it up here. But it's just like a turbo Iron Hands deck.
It's not even that turbo either though, because you attack with Miraidon first for sure. Like
Sure. Well, it is an Iron Hands deck.
it is an Iron
I don't
Hands
think you
deck.
can call
Yeah.
this Future Box. It is an Iron
No, it's
Hands
not. It's
deck.
future hands.
Yeah.
Yeah, the future is now, and it's all Iron hands. Yeah,
I've
definitely
seen the
not a future
future.
box. It's all Iron hands. This is what Jake Gearhart was scared of. He was just early. Yeah, did get top 16. It's a very interesting deck for sure. You only attack with Iron Hands after you attack with like Miraidon initially, and your goal is to just kind of win the prize trade from there on the back of Iron Hands. And the way it's built is interesting because if you look at the gust effects, it's only counter catchers.
Yeah.
So the way
That
you're,
was really surprising to
yeah,
me.
the way you're strategizing is you give up the Miraidon first. Your opponent KOs the Miraidon. You go down in prize cards, and then from there you just stay down in prize cards until you win the game. So if
Okay,
your opponent
sure.
goes knock out a one prizer, and then you just go punch their Charizard with arm press, and then they go, okay, punch your Iron Hands, and then you go, okay, knockout, and they bring up another Charizard, and they punch, and they knock out your Iron Hands, and then you go punch that Charizard with Iron Hands, and at
Yeah,
that
this is
point,
pretty interesting because it's a deck that it does force the 7 prize
yeah,
game every
yeah,
game, which is something we haven't really seen in a little while. I mean, that was
yeah,
like a big part of the game for a long, long time was like forcing the 7 prize game. So for anyone who doesn't know really what we mean, it's like, if you attack with this one prize Miraidon first, you force your opponent to knock it out. And then if your next 3 attackers are all 2 prize Pokemon, the Iron Hands in this instance, they
no
still
other one
have to
prizer in
take
play,
6 prizes to win the game.
yeah,
So they still are working like they have to take 7 prizes to win the game.
yeah, and I don't think this is as good in. I think this list is very good in best of one in a new format. In best 2 out of 3, once this deck has been kind of been put out there and things develop a little bit more, I don't think you're gonna be able to get away with no bosses orders. I think they'll be able to they'll be like, "I'm just gonna not like how your Miraidon here. I'm gonna boss punch your Iron Hands." You're gonna be like, "Well, that sucks. I don't have access to counter catcher the way I want to as the game progresses." Right?
Yeah.
I think we'll see that a little bit. Is yeah, people will be able to play around it. But I think it's a really good play for best of one, especially early on in this format, right? I bet they played against a ton of players who just like always second guess them having boss. And of course you could always kind of play it down a line where you can utilize counter catcher or just kind of win on board. And we see like in this build specifically, like it's all about Iron Hands. Arv and Iona research. The heavy batons, for anyone who doesn't know, the heavy baton says if it's attached to a Pokemon with 4 retreat cost, and that Pokemon is knocked out by damage from attack of your opponent's Pokemon, you can move up to 3 basic energy from that Pokemon to your other Pokemon any way you like. So this is what allows you to chain the Iron Hands so efficiently, right? And
And
then
the
there's
other thing
even
in
gift
here that was
energy,
interesting
yeah,
is, yeah, the 3 gift energy
to
included.
help play around the late game Ionos and Roxannes and all that stuff. So, yeah, so like this deck could definitely be tech for in terms of understanding that it only plays counter catcher is one thing, but then stuff like Temple of Sinnoh or eventually Enhanced Hammer will also have a pretty big effect against this deck as well. So it's a little cheesy. Yeah, it's cool. It's a cool deck. It's an interesting deck. I think it'll have to adapt for
I think
sure,
it's
though.
definitely the coolest deck that we saw from this top 16, right? Like the
I
most
mean,
unique deck.
there was Mill,
Well, yeah, but this was like a known quantity, right?
Mill.
Yeah, but this was like
Yeah, this is definitely
this
the coolest most innovative deck for sure in the
Yeah,
top
yeah, yeah.
16. That's for sure. Yeah, I agree with you. Definitely. I
All
think it's the last
right.
one, right?
That is the last unique deck. I think we've looked at all the top 16.
Ancient
Um,
box, keeping that under wraps.
yeah, the ancient box, no leaks on the ancient box from Naoto here. But yeah, we made 5 predictions going into the weekend. So let's take a look at how we did on our predictions. First off, most popular A spec in top 16. Azul predicted the prime catcher. I also predicted the prime catcher, and we were sort of right. It was actually a tie, and it
Yeah.
is a tie with a card we wouldn't have expected it to be with. So there was 5 prime catcher in the top 16, and there was also 5 heroes cape in the top 16,
Yeah. It's kind of
carried by
crazy.
the control archetype
Yeah,
for
the
sure.
controls really yeah, definitely the controls carrying that hard. I mean, the mill was in there, and then, yeah, the one Charizard player chose to play it as well. So split that was definitely a surprise. Yeah, I did not expect 5 Heroescape was unexpected. I don't know if we give ourselves the dub on that one, to be honest, because well, it was the most popular alongside the Cape, so I guess that is still most popular.
I think it still counts, but I think
That's
it
a
is
dub.
interesting as well that it wasn't like, 12 out of the 16 played prime catcher, right?
I think it's
There's
good
like
to
more
see too.
variety than that, which is good to see.
Yeah, I think Charizard is kind of forcing a couple decks, especially with the Artinas to play the maximum belt to have a shot in that matchup, so that's kind of forced into a couple decks, which isn't like a bad thing. And then we see kind of a little bit more variety of decks of like stuff that's a little bit less aggressive. Not needing or not wanting to even play the prime catcher to begin with, playing the cape, the control stuff, the mill stuff, whatever it might be. Yeah, I think it's just like good to see. Not too much prime catcher.
Our next prediction was most played deck in the top 16. Azul guessed Chien Pao. There was 0 Chien Pao. And I guessed Charizard, which was also tied with the most popular deck, which was either Charizard or Control Snorlax.
Oh, I think I did. I think I actually miscounted. There is 6 prime catchers.
Oh, you miscounted?
Yeah, because there's the 3 Lost Zone decks are prime catcher.
Yeah.
2 of the Charizard decks are prime catcher, and so is the Arceus Vulpix.
Oh,
Prime
yeah.
catcher does reign supreme here. Yeah.
We got the dub.
Solidified dub. Yeah, a little bit of a miscount there.
But yeah, and then most played deck in top 16. Azul said Champao. I said Charizard, and it was Charizard tied
Tied with control.
with the Snorlax. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, still,
No
yeah, I think that's
Chiempao.
probably one of the biggest surprises. Honestly, is that there was no Chiampao in the top 16. To be
Yeah,
honest,
honestly, I don't even know how well it was doing in city leagues though. Um, Now
maybe
that
the
I'm like
deck's
kind
just
of
not
thinking
that
about
good,
that.
bro.
Maybe not. Dude, it seems like it'd be so powerful with Prime Catcher. Like it seems like it maybe gained Path is gone.
Yeah,
It got Prime Catcher,
yeah,
0 in top 16. But is it also just one of those situations where people think the deck is bad and then Owen's gonna come and like win EUIC with it or something? Possibly.
true. And then our next prediction was future or ancient. Azul predicted the future. I said ancient. Which one would do better? And they both did finish in the top 16, but Naoto with the ninth place finish with the ancient
Well, we
box.
don't know for sure it's Ancient Box. The list has not been put out there. I think we
Okay.
put this one on hold until
Okay.
confirmation. When
Stop the
Naoto
count. Stop the count.
when Naoto releases the list, then we can lock in a victor. But for right now, I'll take the placeholder victory.
Okay. Hold on.
What if they're just like playing one Roaring Moon and one of the other guy? Like, I mean, come on, it's possible.
What deck does that?
I don't know. A deck that wants to pretend to be Ancient Box.
Oh my gosh. Most played new EX card in the top 16. Azul predicted Iron Crown. I predicted the Iron Leaves. And what do we say? There was 3 Iron Leaves in
Beach.
the top 16.
Yep. And unfortunately, only 3 of the Iron Crown because the Future Hands only ran 3 of them. Not the full 4 that could have been played. So it's a tie on that one.
Is a tie there once again. The Iron Leaves did do better collectively,
It was
so
just the number. The number is what we're concerned with. Like, that's not relevant.
all right, but let's see how you try to take this one away from me because our last prediction was what A spec will be in the winning deck. Azul said reboot pod going all in on the future box, and I also went all in, but it was on the Lugia because I predicted Master Ball would be the number one A spec on the
For
weekend, the winning A spec on the weekend, and indeed It was Master Ball. Lugia V-Star takes it down. I basically went 5 for 5 here, Azul, by the way.
That's not true. Did you predict Lugia as well? Did you even bring up Lugia? I forget. Or did you just
Yes!
say Master Ball? Oh, okay, okay.
The full clip was like Lugia's winning, Master Ball in the Lugia. I literally went
Yeah,
5 for 5 here, buddy. Come on.
that's just not true.
It's it is literally true. Show me how it's not true.
Well, we're tied on
No, yeah,
the
sure,
most
we are
played EX.
tied, but I went
Yeah.
5 for 5. Like, I predicted all 5 things correctly that we laid out.
Well, we haven't confirmed if it's ancient yet or not.
Oh
So
my
you're not confirmed on
gosh.
that. So it's close so far. You got a couple of
Bro,
them. You
Azul,
haven't closed it out.
you're
We need
a
more
two-time
information.
international champion. You've won 6 regional championships. Just let me have this, bro. Let me have this. This is all I have.
We'll wait for the rest of the information to come in to solidify the predictions. Until that point, no dubs can be given out.
Wow. So
But yeah,
this
you're
is
right.
how
The
you get
Master
away with
Ball,
it all these years, huh?
Master Ball in the Lugia, and I guess maybe it is just the best ace spec in there. To be honest, right? Like we talked about that. Like just find. I mean, actually, we didn't talk about that. There's the Master Ball in there.
Yeah.
Just finding your Pokemon is maybe just like that important. Like getting your Archeops is really important, right?
And I think it's like this deck would definitely love to play Prime Catcher, right? Like Prime Catcher would be
Yeah. It
super
would-
good in here.
Yeah.
But I think like yeah, the Master Ball is probably just a little too important. Like you probably are consistent enough without it,
Why not be a little bit
maybe,
more?
but like every little boost to the consistency helps here,
Yeah,
right?
especially if your prize trade is just knocking out their active turn after turn after turn.
Like if you can't get 2 Archeops in play turn 2, this deck is not worth playing, right? So
Well, you
you
don't need
wanna
it
do
every game, but
everything
you
you
want it
can to
often.
maximize the chance of that.
Exactly. Yeah. So actually, yeah, I don't hate the Master Ball. I'll have to, of course, play it myself and see if it makes that big of a difference, or if it feels like having something like the Prime Catcher is that much more powerful. But yeah, I'm definitely I could definitely be convinced, or I definitely could end up being convinced that Master Ball is just the way to go. To be
How
honest,
about
it
this?
feels
A
weird, but
card that has been legal for years and years and years in the expanded format, and it gets its first limitless page.
with a dove, maybe many more to come potentially as well.
Potentially,
More entries.
potentially. Lugia on top, baby. Well, Azul, I think that is going to do it for the episode this week. Before we get into the bonus episode, though, do you have anything else you want to add before I send us out of here?
Nope. Send us out.
All right. Thanks as always to everyone for listening and supporting. If you did enjoy, as always, please be sure to leave us a rating, a review, positive comment, anything like that. All those little things help us out a ton. It's free, it's super fast, easy, and it helps more people discover the podcast. And if you want to stay up to date with us and what's happening in our lives and also with the podcast, you can follow us over on Twitter. You can follow myself at Chip Ritchie. Azul is at Azul_GG. And then you can follow the podcast as well at Uncommon_Energy.
Appreciate the support as always. Catch y'all next week, 7 a.m. Eastern on Wednesday.